Chapter 3875. This woman isn't as simple as she seems. Lin Yi had completely understood Morongzhan's plan. He believed that Meng Jueguang was doing the same. However, even though they knew this, there was nothing they could do to Morongzhan. They could only watch as Morongzhan became the third-level existence that everyone looked up to, yet they could not do anything about it. Otherwise, if Morongzhan decided to side with the slightest sign of trouble, wouldn't that be asking for trouble? They finally realized that Morongzhan was planning something that no one could stop. Furthermore, due to the rules of the newcomer challenge, they had no way of stopping her. They could only watch as the woman slowly established her foundation and spread her wings. However, the good news for Lin Yi was that he only had two subordinates, Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongkai. With Lin Yi's order, it would not be easy for Morongzhan to seduce them. On the other hand, Meng Jueguang's side was different. His subordinates were not very loyal. Furthermore, everyone, including Meng Tong, was drooling over the beauty Morongzhan. As Morongzhan slowly established her position, it was very likely that these people would be swayed by the wind. Due to being suppressed by Lin Yi and his group, Meng Jueguang's control over the newcomers had dropped to a freezing point. Even if these people did not dare to betray him openly, if Morongzhan were to give them a flirtatious look, or even give them some benefits, it was believed that not many people would refuse to flirt with the beauty Morongzhan. Morongzhan's brilliance was that even if Meng Jueguang knew that she was trying to poach him, he could only endure it for the time being, in order not to make the situation worse, in order not to force Morongzhan to side with Lin Yi. While Morongzhan was stirring up a storm in the newcomer welcoming pavilion, Southern Skygate and Yuzha, who were far away in the soaring pavilion, finally arrived. The leader of the Nan clan's three heroes, Nan Tianba. Nan Tianba had just returned from a mission. He was still wearing his sinister-looking black armor as he sat on the main seat. He looked sternly at Yuzha, who was trembling on the ground, not daring to move. He then looked at the nervous Southern Heavenly Gate. Suppressing the two of them until they couldn't breathe, Nan Tianba finally suppressed his anger and said, "This king has only left the island to carry out a mission for 2 months, yet such a big thing actually happened. Third brother lost his life, and you still haven't caught the culprit. Second brother, you've really disappointed this king." At the same time, because Nan Tianba had just experienced a cruel massacre, his expression changed. A murderous aura combined with a powerful aura forced Yuzha, a middle-stage foundation building expert, to lie on the ground, not daring to move a muscle. After all, the person before them was an existence that surpassed the peak of the foundation establishment realm in the South Heaven Gate. He was a true golden core expert, who was regarded as a cornerstone of the 3 great pavilions. In addition to Yuzha, even the South Heaven Gate, the eldest senior brother in charge of the sky-soaring pavilion, had his forehead covered in cold sweat. "Big brother, it's not that I don't want to avenge third brother. It's just that I've already told you in detail. This Kong Mingming not only involves Su Lingchong, but also eldest Miss Shangwan. This is no small matter. I really don't dare to act blindly without thinking." South Heaven Gate complained with a sullen face. Hearing this, Nan Tianba couldn't help but frown. With his powerful golden core stage strength, people like Su Lingchong and Shanghai Laner couldn't even enter his eyes. He didn't care about them at all, but the big shots behind them were the ones who stood at the peak of the entire North Island. Even a golden core stage expert like him didn't dare to provoke them. What's more, now that Su Lingchong was eyeing the position of the eldest senior brother in charge of the sky-soaring pavilion, this was the time when they needed a relationship with the higher-ups. Otherwise, if a big boss like Shanghai Tianhua were to casually open his mouth, South Heaven Gate would have no choice but to give up his position without any resistance. After a long silence, Nan Tianba finally opened his mouth and said, "Fine, this situation is indeed difficult to deal with. This matter can't be completely blamed on you. The most important thing right now is to protect your position as the eldest senior brother in charge of the sky-soaring pavilion. As for third brother, we'll think of a way to avenge him later." Southern Heaven Gate's position could allow him to gain a lot of benefits. Even Nan Tianba benefited a lot from it. Therefore, even if Southern Heaven Gate wanted to give up, he wouldn't agree. Seeing that Nan Tianba finally didn't hold on to third brother's matter, Southern Heaven Gate immediately let out a sigh of relief and nodded. I'll listen to Big Brother's orders. You've always been resourceful. Why don't you tell me what we should do next? Nan Tianba gestured for Southern Heaven Gate to come up with a plan. Although he was the eldest of the Nan family's 3 heroes and his strength was undeniable, he didn't like these troublesome matters. Big Brother, just the 2 of us alone aren't enough. Therefore, I think it's necessary to let Middle Island's uncle come forward and write a letter to the higher-ups of the sky-soaring pavilion. Even if we can't convince all of them, we can at least increase our prestige. At least we won't appear to be too weak. These higher-ups will still have some concerns and won't all side with Su Lingqiu. Southern Heaven Gate suggested, "All right, we'll do as you say. I'll write a letter to Uncle now." Nan Tianba nodded his head and then sighed. It's fortunate that our grandfather has been in closed-door cultivation for the past few years. Otherwise, with his influence, if he were to come forward and say a word, who in the sky-soaring pavilion's higher-ups would dare to say a word? That's right. I hope the old man can successfully go into closed-door cultivation this time. When the time comes, we'll be able to hold our heads up high. Southern Heaven Gate also had a face full of emotions. After the 2 brothers finished their discussion, Nan Tianba's gaze shifted to Yu Zhe. His face suddenly turned cold and he coldly snorted, "Third brother's death was all because of you. According to my original plan, I wanted to kill you to comfort third brother's soul in heaven." Hearing this, Yu Zhe was instantly covered in a cold sweat. All of the hairs on his body stood up. Nan Tianba's killing intent was real. These words weren't a joke. Luckily, Nan Tianba had another sentence. However, seeing that third brother has always praised you as a disciple, I'll spare your dog life today. Scram. Yu Zhe hurriedly shouted, "Eldest martial uncle, please wait. This disciple has been reading ancient books in the library for the past 3 years. I know of a treasure that can help you become the strongest nascent soul expert." What a joke. He didn't hesitate to reveal the secret of the starring stone because he coveted the Southern Heaven Gate's minor phaseless technique. Moreover, if he stayed, this eldest martial uncle would have even more benefits. How could he let go of this opportunity? Chapter 3876. In front of eldest martial uncle, this disciple wouldn't dare lie. However, this item is the same as the starring stone. It has only appeared in ancient books. Normal people wouldn't be able to recognize it even if they saw it. Yu Zhe vowed. His meaning was clear. Others might not be able to recognize this item, but only he could. Nan Tianba was finally moved. After pondering for a moment, he said, "All right, you can follow second brother for now. If I have time, I will personally teach you. In the future, do things for me well. If you have any other thoughts, you know what will happen." This disciple understands. Yu Zhe was immediately overjoyed. Now that he had stolen Nan Tianyong's inheritance, if he could obtain the minor phaseless godly skill of the Southern Sky Gate and Nan Tianba's personal teaching, even without the starring stone, his future would be just around the corner. In the blink of an eye, a month passed by in the blink of an eye. The 16th round of the newcomer competition had officially begun. Damn, what is this woman thinking? Does she really want to go against me? Meng Jueguang looked at Murongzhan's enchanting figure from afar and clenched his teeth in anger. In this month, Murongzhan had been methodically moving up from the last cave to the top. Her intentions were self-evident. What Linny could see, he could also see. However, the problem was that even though he knew what Murongzhan was planning, he could only hold it in. This kind of feeling was really depressing. If Murongzhan had immediately sided with Lin Yi, then for Meng Jueguang, although the situation would have been worse, he wouldn't have felt so bad. However, this suspense could be solved in today's round. Now that the newcomer competition had already been over 10 rounds, it was beginning to end. The ranking of the caves had already been determined, so there wouldn't be too many variables. First place, Lin Yi. Second place, Xiao Hongkai. Third place, Xiao Ran. Fourth place, Meng Tong. Fifth, Murongzhan. This was the current top 5 of the newcomers' cave dwelling rankings in Blue Cloud Pavilion. As for the other strong person, Li Jingming, he did not reveal his strength at the early stage of the building foundation realm in the past dozen rounds of competition. He was originally ranked second in the cave abode competition, but he wisely chose a roundabout strategy. He took the opportunity when other newcomers challenged him to admit defeat. Not only did he push himself to the cave abode with a lower ranking, but he also successfully bypassed Morongzhan, who was coming at him fiercely. He killed 2 birds with 1 stone. According to the current ranking, today's rookie challenge was the best round to see Morongzhan's true intentions. The reason was simple: she had Mingtong above her. In the previous rounds, although the rookies that Morongzhan had challenged were nominally Meng Jueguang's subordinates, they were not the core members of Meng Jueguang's faction. However, Mingtong was different. He was a direct disciple that Meng Jueguang had nurtured with all his might. This was where Meng Jueguang's bottom line was. It did not matter if Morongzhan challenged other newcomers, but if she challenged Mingtong today, it would be equivalent to declaring war with Meng Jueguang officially. From then on, in Meng Jueguang's eyes, Morongzhan would be a sworn enemy like Lin Yi. There would be no room for negotiation. However, if Morongzhan were to skip Mingtong and challenge Xiao Ran, who was ranked higher than her, that would mean that she would be friendly to Meng Jueguang. In Meng Jueguang's eyes, Morongzhan would be one of his own people that he could use. She would be friendly to Meng Jueguang. In Meng Jueguang's eyes, Morongzhan would be one of his own people that he could use. Whether they were friends or foes, it all depended on Morongzhan's choice today. Before the battle, Mingtong asked Meng Jueguang nervously, "Ninth cousin, if Beauty Morong challenges me today, what should I do?" Although the Meridian heart-shattering pill was already in place, under Meng Jueguang's deliberate arrangement, Mingtong had not taken it yet. He was still in the early stage of the foundation-building realm. Morongzhan, on the other hand, was at the peak of the early stage of the foundation-building realm. "What do you mean, what should we do? If she dares to challenge you, it means that she's our enemy. Fight her with all your might." Meng Jueguang snorted coldly. Then, he looked at Mingtong and said suspiciously, "I heard that this slut often takes the initiative to invite people to her wooden hut to have tea. Don't tell me you're involved, too?" "Huh. No, definitely not." Mingtong denied it immediately. Over the past month, not only did Morongzhan successfully make Meng Jueguang and Lin Yi hesitant, but because her position was gradually stabilized, some of the Blue Cloud Pavilion's newcomers began to go with the flow. The most obvious example was when they accepted Morongzhan's invitation to participate in the so-called wooden tea party at her small wooden hut. Of course, it was a very pure tea party in name. To put it bluntly, they were going to watch Morongzhan, the slut, perform an erotic dance. Even if they could not taste any substantial sweetness, being able to see such a delightful and enchanting beauty wearing simple clothes and posing in various seductive postures was still enough to make them salivate. Moreover, the benefits of participating in Morongzhan's tea party were not just a feast for the eyes. For the low-level Blue Cloud Pavilion rookies, there were actually substantial benefits. As it turned out, Morongzhan had deliberately avoided the rookies who were invited to participate in the wooden tea party during the month's rookie challenge. Otherwise, she would not have been able to fight her way from the so-called 16th cave at the foot of the mountain to the 5th cave at the foot of the mountain in just a month. The 2 rookies who had skipped the challenge had actually profited. Not only could they feast their eyes at the wooden tea party, they could also lose less challenge points in the rookie challenge. Why not? However, this was not without its disadvantages. At least, when Meng Jueguang saw that Morongzhan had deliberately let the 2 of them go, the 2 of them had already been blacklisted. Even if they did not betray her on the surface, when the time came, Meng Jueguang would definitely settle the score. This was also the reason why Morongzhan could only entice 2 rookies in a month despite being so tempting. Although the others were also drooling under Meng Jueguang's tyranny, there were many who had evil intentions, but not many who had the guts to do so. Really? Meng Jueguang shot a glance at Mingtong. This fellow was his most valued younger brother. If the other rookies were fence-sitters, he would at most be annoyed. However, if even Mingtong had a problem, then as the senior steward, he would be a general without an army. Meng Jueguang did not doubt Mingtong's loyalty, but he did not dare compliment this fellow's intelligence. If Morongzhan casually teased him, then there might be a problem, so he had to be careful. "I really didn't. I can swear an oath. Ninth cousin, you can't listen to other people's slander." Mingtong hurriedly swore. Chapter 3877. That's good. We'll see what that woman, Morongjeon, will choose later. If she knows what's good for her, there will still be a place for her in the future. However, if she's blind enough to challenge you, then there's nothing to be afraid of. Just fight her with all your might. She won't dare to kill you. Meng Jueguang snorted coldly. Okay. Meng Tong subconsciously shrank his neck. Meng Jueguang sounded very confident, but the person she was going up against was him, Meng Tong. What if this woman was unscrupulous? Wouldn't he be beaten to death? Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Morongjeon leisurely walked up to the ring. In every round of the newcomer challenge, it had become a tradition for the newcomers of Blue Cloud Pavilion to watch this beauty go up first. There had been no exception for more than a month. Morongjeon's pair of seductive peach blossom eyes slowly swept across everyone's faces, especially when her gaze landed on Meng Jueguang and Lin Yi. She even paused for a moment meaningfully. Only when everyone's hearts were hooked did she slowly speak. Lord Judge, Morongjeon from Cave Number 5 at the foot of the mountain challenges Xiaoran from Cave Number 3 at the foot of the mountain. Morongjeon smiled charmingly. Her eyes finally fell on Xiaoran. She even threw a seductive glance at him. As soon as she finished speaking, the crowd went into an uproar. Not only were Meng Jueguang and Lin Yi concerned about Morongjeon's stance, but the other newcomers were also very concerned. However, they might not be able to guess the woman's intentions as early as the two of them. Skip Meng Tong and challenge Xiaoran. Meng Jueguang immediately let out a sigh of relief. Morongjeon's action was undoubtedly a gesture of goodwill. Although it did not mean that this woman would rely on him, through this action, he could at least be sure that the person Morongjeon wanted to deal with was Lin Yi, not him, Meng Jueguang. This woman is quite sensible. Meng Jueguang smiled complacently. Although Morongjeon's action of stealing from him previously made him very angry, as long as Morongjeon went to deal with Lin Yi's group, he would be a natural ally. They could be roped in and used. It's more than that. Ninth cousin brother, this beauty Morong is actually with us. Meng Tong chuckled. Now, not only did he not have to bite the bullet and fight with Morongjeon, but he could also imagine his beautiful future. Since they were on the same side, surely Morongjeon, that slut, wouldn't mind letting him, Meng Tong, have a taste of sweetness? Under the gazes of the crowd, Xiaoran, who was challenged by Morongjeon, did not seem to be surprised. He exchanged glances with Lin Yi and the others. He immediately stepped into the arena. Please advise me. Xiaoran cupped his fists at Morongjeon. His expression was calm, and he did not panic at all. Seeing that, Morongjeon could not help but chuckle. Brother Xiaoran is so elegant. I didn't notice it before. Xiaoran had always been the kind of person who did not show his strength. Even though everyone knew that he was Lin Yi's right-hand man, and that his strength should not be underestimated, very few people would pay attention to him. On the contrary, people like Xiao Hongkai were more eye-catching. Ever since she came to the welcome pavilion, Morongjeon had been observing everyone. Lin Yi was the first to be targeted, and his subordinate, Xiaoran, would not be let go. However, she had always thought that this person was ordinary. Now that she stood in the arena and fought with him, she suddenly realized that this person was not simple at all. With his strength in the early stage of the foundation building realm, he was fighting against an expert at the peak of the early stage of the foundation building realm. However, he was still able to maintain such a calm and collected manner. How could such a person be an ordinary person? Even if his boss, Lin Yi, were to fight him, he would not be able to do as well. She really did not understand why this guy would follow Lin Yi so easily. Brother Xiaoran, after this, are you interested in coming to my wooden tea party? I'm willing to wait for you. Morongjeon tempted him with her charming eyes. Everyone in the audience swallowed their saliva in envy. When Morongjeon told them before, he did not say anything so sincere. Even the two who were brave enough to go to the meeting could only enjoy the view. It was impossible for them to make a move on Morongjeon. However, now that Morongjeon said that in front of everyone, did it not mean that such a salivating flower was going to fall on Xiaoran, the silent cow dung? If I were Xiaoran, I'd agree to it first. It's a free advantage, don't you think so, boss? Xiao Hongkai joked with Lin Yi. Linny could not help but laugh when he heard that. Right, my foot. This is a man-eating flower that eats people. There's no such thing as a free advantage. By the time you taste the sweetness, you'll already be a piece of meat in her mouth. It's wishful thinking to escape unscathed. Tsk. What a scary woman. Xiao Honkai shrank her neck when she heard that. She turned around and looked at the arena with anticipation. I'm very curious about how Xiao Ran, the silent and taciturn guy, will react. Maybe he's also a man who's cold on the outside. Then we'll just watch. Linny smiled. He was not worried about Morongzhan's seduction at all. If Xiao Ran could not control himself so easily, he would not have been able to escape from the cruel competition in the secular world. Faced with Morongzhan's undisguised seduction, which could even be called bold seduction, Xiao Ran's face actually turned red. He looked a little shy like a little boy. Yo, brother Xiao Ran is actually shy. How cute. Morongzhan's eyes instantly lit up. She had been in the brothel for so many years, but she had never seen a guy among the cultivators who would blush after being casually teased. It was really too rare. Morongzhan was not the only one who found it strange when Xiao Ran blushed. Even Lin Yi and the others who were below the stage were taken aback. They could not help but look at each other. No way. He's blushing after being casually teased. Has this guy never had a serious relationship with a woman before? He's too honest. The others, including Ming Tong, laughed wantonly. This guy can't still be a virgin, can he? This is too funny. A cultivator in the early stage of the foundation building realm has not even touched a woman before. He's such a failure in life. As for Meng Jueguang, he glared at the important parts of Morongzhan's body greedily. This woman is really 100%. After a while, Xiao Ran's expression returned to normal. He said awkwardly, Miss Morong, I'm not interested in the wooden tea party. If there's nothing else, let's start as soon as possible. Chapter 3878. Initially, she wanted to tease Xiao Ran a little more. However, seeing that Xiao Ran had adjusted his expression and was unmoved, she lost interest and said, Fine. Since Xiao Ran wants to fight, I'll play with you. As soon as she finished speaking, Morongzhan let out a charming snort, and her figure swiftly flew toward Xiao Ran. As soon as she made her move, everyone below the ring, including Meng Jueguang and Lin Yi, widened their eyes and observed her abilities. Although she had been at the Welcome Pavilion for a month and was always the first to fight in every round of the Newcomers Challenge, due to the huge difference in abilities, every newcomer who was challenged by her, an expert at the peak of the early stage of the foundational building realm, would admit defeat. Therefore, nobody had seen her fight for the past month. However, Xiao Ran, whom she was facing now, was not an ordinary newcomer. As an expert in the early stage of the foundational building realm, although Morongzhan felt pressured, it was not to the point where she would not dare to fight. With Xiao Ran's background, unless Morongzhan was undefeatable among those in the early stage of the foundational building realm, it would not be easy for her to defeat Xiao Ran even if she was confident of winning. As soon as Morongzhan moved, Xiao Ran moved as well. With an exquisite body technique like the shadow step, Xiao Ran was never an expert who liked to fight head-on. Xiao Ran's fighting style was to use the shadow step to deal with his opponent and look for opportunities to attack. It was because of this fighting style that he had the confidence to fight Morongzhan, an expert at the peak of the early stage of the foundational building realm. If it were Xiao Honkai, who was used to fighting head-on, challenging someone who was of a higher level would be suicide. Yo, brother Xiao Ran, you have such a good body technique. Morongzhan's eyes brightened. Because she had the advantage in terms of strength and rank, her speed was clearly faster than Xiao Ran's. In theory, Xiao Ran should not be able to escape from the palm of her hand. However, in the limited space of the arena, Xiao Ran made it impossible for her to make a move. This was all thanks to the shadow step. The speed in a straight line might not be very fast, but in such a small area, it was definitely second to none, even when compared to all the movement techniques. However, even then, Xiao Ran did not dare to be careless in the slightest. This was because he had already pushed his disorienting steps to its limits. However, the most he could do was to contend with Morongzhan. He could remain undefeated, but he would not be able to find an opportunity to attack. After all, an expert at the peak of the early stage of the Foundation establishment realm was not that easy to deal with. Other than the little bit of kinship between her and Elder Morong, it was mainly because of her own strength. This woman was not as simple as a vase that looked good but was useless. With regards to this situation, Xiao Ran had long since anticipated it. If he could seize the initiative just by relying on the Shadow Step alone, then his opponent would be too weak. However, if this continued, the situation wouldn't be advantageous to him. The effects of the Shadow Step were shocking, but it also consumed a large amount of vital energy. If this continued, Xiao Ran felt that he would not be able to outlast Morong Zhen. Just as Xiao Ran was about to take the risk and wait for an opportunity to make his move, Morong Zhen, who was chasing after him, suddenly giggled. "Brother Xiao Ran, people say that a man chasing a woman is like a mountain apart. A woman chasing a man is like a mountain apart. I've been chasing after you for so long. You should at least give me a response." Flirting. Flirting again. Although Xiao Ran did not want to bother with her, his shadow step slowed down a little. Then, his heart shuddered, and a murderous intent suddenly appeared behind him. Xiao Ran was already very careful. While he was using Shadow Step to evade the attacks, Xiao Ran was extremely cautious. While he was using the Shadow Step to deal with Morong Zhen, he was constantly paying attention to his opponent's position and movements. However, in that split second, Morong Zhen's fingertip flashed with a piercing light. She was 50 feet away just a moment ago, but in the blink of an eye, she had already appeared behind Xiao Ran. Bang! Under the astonishment of everyone present, Xiao Ran directly fell out of the ring. Lin Yi and the others reacted and immediately went forward to help him up to check his injuries. They asked in concern, "Are you all right? Are you badly injured?" Before Xiao Ran could speak, Morong Zhen spoke on his behalf. She said in a tone that was half surprised and half regretful, "Of course he's all right. Brother Xiao Ran, you're the first person in the early stage of the foundation building realm to be able to dodge my phantom finger. You should be proud of yourself." Under the support of his senior brother and Xiao Hongkai, Xiao Ran slowly stood up. His expression was rather unpleasant. "Thank you for your guidance, Miss Morong. If there's a chance in the future, I'll definitely return the favor." He was certain that Morong Zhen did not hold back at all from that attack just now. She really did want to kill him. Her words were as sweet as honey, but when she found a chance to distract him, she immediately struck a fatal blow. This woman was just as Boss Linny had said. She had the heart of a snake and scorpion. If it were not for the fact that he was naturally alert and constantly on guard, he might not have been able to dodge that attack even if he used the Shadow Step. Besides, he had also used the convenience of being at the edge of the stage. If he jumped off the stage, it would be considered as him forfeiting the fight. Otherwise, even if he was lucky enough to dodge the attack, Morong Zhen would definitely have a killing move up her sleeve. "Brother Xiao Ran, you're making me really scared. Why don't we change the method? How about we go to my wooden hut next time? I'm looking forward to it." Morong Zhen's pair of seductive eyes could not stop glistening. Her adoration was clearly written on her face. It was as if she had not tried to kill Xiao Ran at all. She changed her attitude faster than flipping the pages of a book. This woman was really one of a kind. Lin Yi and the others shook their heads speechlessly. Their understanding of Morong Zhen had deepened. This woman was indeed not easy to deal with. She was not any easier to deal with than Meng Jueguang, the eldest senior brother who was in charge. Seeing that Xiao Ran was ignoring her, Morong Zhen had no choice but to give up on teasing him in boredom. She said in a coquettish voice, "Brother Xiao Ran, even though I've won, I'll leave the third cave at the foot of the mountain for you to stay. Don't forget to come to my wooden hut to play. I'll be waiting for you." After that, Morong Zhen swayed her seductive waist and leisurely walked off the stage under the greedy gaze of the crowd. "Hongkai, if nothing goes wrong, this woman will definitely challenge you in the next round. When that time comes, don't try to be brave. Just admit defeat." Lin Yi warned Xiao Hongkai with a serious expression. "That's right. This woman is really dangerous. Even though I saw her move just now, I couldn't react in time. Today, I was lucky to be at the edge of the stage. Otherwise, I'd probably be a corpse by now," Xiao Ran said with lingering fear. Chapter 3879. Xiao Ran, who was more adaptable, was already in such a state. If it was Xiao Hongkai, who only knew how to fight head-on, the consequences would be obvious. Judging from Morongzhan's performance today, if she had the chance to kill anyone in Lin Yi's group, she would not hold back. This article was written by starting players judging from the current situation. Although Morongzhan was stronger than the other two groups in Blue Cloud Pavilion, she was still alone. On the other hand, Meng Jueguang could only rely on Meng Tong, so it would be difficult for him to improve in a short period of time. Therefore, the strongest group was still Lin Yi's group. If they could take the opportunity to get rid of Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongkai, who were Lin Yi's two wings, it would be a good thing for both Morongzhan and Meng Jueguang. No one would let go of such an opportunity easily. Hearing Lin Yi's words, even if Xiao Hongkai wanted to put on a brave front, she could only nip it in the bud. She nodded and said, "Boss, don't worry. I treasure my life. I won't take things too hard." Hearing that, Lin Yi and the others could not help but laugh. "You dare to say that you treasure your life? Then who was the guy who almost died after fighting with Ming Tong in the previous 2 rounds?" As expected, a few days later, in the 17th round of the Newcomer Challenge, Morongzhan challenged Xiao Hongkai, who was in the second cave at the foot of the mountain. Due to Lin Yi's warning, although Xiao Hongkai wanted to have a good fight with this evil woman, she chose to forfeit in the end. What a smart and cute young man. This was Morongzhan's evaluation of Xiao Hongkai. This was not a polite remark, but a sincere evaluation. If Xiao Hongkai was really stubborn, even if Lin Yi had warned him beforehand, Morongzhan could still provoke him to attack first. However, reality proved that no matter how Morongzhan tried to persuade Xiao Hongkai had been very restrained from beginning to end. He had the demeanor of a great general who was as steady as a mountain. Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongkai, the two subordinates of Morongzhan, received high praise from Morongzhan. But in this way, she was even more interested in Lin Yi. Although she tried to interact with Lin Yi on the first day she arrived at the Welcome Pavilion, she still had no idea how strong Lin Yi was. A person who could make Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongkai follow his orders could not be an ordinary person. 3 days later, the 18th round of the Newcomer Challenge began as scheduled. This was the final round of the assessment, so it naturally attracted a lot of attention. Everyone was rubbing their palms together. Looking at the previous 4 rounds of the Newcomer assessment, as long as one was capable, the challenge round was undoubtedly the easiest round to grab points. The 18th round was the last chance. If they did not fight now, they would be helpless when their points were deducted during the spiritual medicine assessment. Then, they would really want to cry, but no tears would come out. The intensity of this round's final round was imaginable. Other than that, there was another more important point. Morongzhan was currently in the second cave at the foot of the mountain. She had already defeated 2 of her subordinates, Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongkai. So, in this last round, would she challenge Lin Yi? One was an expert at the peak of the early stage of the foundational level. The other was the number 1 newcomer that everyone was helpless against. If these two were to fight, in the eyes of the newcomers at the Blue Cloud Pavilion, it would be like Mars colliding with Earth. This was a battle that could decide the future of the competition. However, Morongzhan was not a fool. Although she had already defeated Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongkai, it did not mean that she would take the initiative to go against Lin Yi. She was only expressing her goodwill to Meng Jueguang, but she did not completely support Meng Jueguang. However, she didn't fully support Meng Jueguang. If she were to challenge him today, Meng Jueguang would be the biggest beneficiary no matter who won. When the sandpiper and the clam fight, the fisherman benefits. There was no need to explain this logic. Before this, Morongzhan did not think much of Lin Yi, who was rumored to only be in the early stage of the foundational level. However, after witnessing the potential of Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongkai, she changed her mind. Based on Lin Yi's strength, even if he was really in the early stage of the foundational level, he would not be easy to deal with. If she was not careful, she might fail miserably. Therefore, according to Morongzhan's initial plan, she did not plan to challenge Lin Yi today. However, what Meng Jueguang said last night made her change her mind. The higher-ups have decided that I will take over the position of the 3rd Pavilion Master of the Welcome Pavilion soon. Whether this news is true or not, I believe with Lady Morong's connections, It will not be difficult to verify. When that time comes, the position of the new manager of the Blue Cloud Pavilion will be vacant. This sentence made Morongjian's heart palpitate. Over the past month or so, she had found out that the reason she was sent to the Welcome Pavilion was all because of Lu Tianyu. Not only was he Su Lingchong's sworn brother, but he was also the young master of the Soaring Sky Pavilion with a powerful background. Moreover, he had spread the news of her offending Lady Shangwan to everyone, causing Morongjian to become a street rat in the Soaring Sky Pavilion. Even Elder Morong, who was behind her, did not dare to speak up for her, let alone speak up for her. If nothing unexpected happened, her becoming a disciple of the Blue Cloud Pavilion was already a foregone conclusion. In the future, even if she entered the three great pavilions, she would still be a member of the Blue Cloud Pavilion and would not be able to return to the Soaring Sky Pavilion. If she wanted to stand out in the Blue Cloud Pavilion and take revenge on the Lady Shangwan laner, she could only rely on herself. As for the position of the eldest senior brother in charge of the newcomers in the Welcome Pavilion, even though it was not that important, nor did it have much power, if Morongjian could hold the position while she was still a newcomer, it would be a very glorious and rare resume. After that, once she entered the Blue Cloud Pavilion, she would immediately be promoted to a higher rank. This kind of opportunity was almost impossible to come by. Morongjian wanted this position, and if he were to really be promoted to the third pavilion master as Meng Jueguang had said, then he would be the previous pavilion master as well as the immediate superior. Hence, he would have a great say in the candidate for the position. Meng Jueguang could see through Morongjian's ambition, so he proposed this condition. He recommended Morongjian to be promoted to the position, and the price was to challenge Lin Yi. Honorable Judge, number 2 at the foot of the mountain, Morongjian, would like to challenge number 1 at the foot of the mountain, Lin Yi. After Morongjian went up the stage, she no longer acted coquettishly like she usually did. Her expression was unprecedentedly stern and stern. In the midst of the uproar, Lin Yi raised his head in surprise. He did not believe that a woman like Morongjian would be willing to become Meng Jueguang's subordinate. Now that she had done such a stupid thing, there must be a reason behind it. Fine. It's been a long time since I've fought with someone. It's just the right time to loosen up. The corner of Lin Yi's mouth curled into a smile. He calmly walked up the stage. Chapter 3880. Hee, this is going to be interesting. I've never seen Boss with such a strong desire to fight, Xiao Honkai said excitedly. Xiao Ran nodded in agreement. He had seen Lin Yi fight in the secular world, but he had been quiet ever since he came to Heavenly Island. Even if he did, it was just a small fight. He had never seen Lin Yi get serious. Nobody knew that although Lin Yi had been keeping a low profile ever since he came to Heavenly Island, he was not always quiet. Not only did he beat Yuja half to death, but he also blew up Nan Tianyu, a master in the late stage of the foundation building realm, to the brink of death. It was just that nobody knew he was second Lin. The bitter senior brother next to him was a little worried. Morongjian is at the peak of the early stage of the foundation building realm. Junior brother Lin might be in danger. Sigh. It's better to be careful. Seeing Lin Yi walk into the ring calmly, Morongjian suddenly chuckled. Brother Lin, I've been wanting to fight with you for a long time. Now that I finally have the chance, you must go easy on me later. Lin Yi nodded. Don't worry, I will. F***CK. The crowd below the ring could not help but curse. Morongjian was a master in the peak of the early stage of the foundation building realm. She was just being polite, but Lin Yi was only in the early stage of the foundation building realm. What was he trying to act tough for? As expected of a pretentious person, he would never forget to act tough in any situation. Not only did the crowd below the ring look down on him, but even Morongjian was surprised. Isn't his attitude and tone a little too arrogant? Morongjian only came back to her senses after being stunned for a while. That's great. Brother Lin, you must keep your word. As soon as he finished speaking, Morongjian's body turned into nothingness. When he reappeared in the next moment, he was less than 3 inches away from Lin Yi. His fingertip was pointed at Lin Yi's throat with blinding white light. Phantom finger. When he fought against Xiao Ran last time, Morongjian at least managed to stall for a while. However, this time, he used a killing move right away. From this, it could be seen how important Linny was to him. To be honest, even if he had not made a deal with Mengjueguang, Morongjun himself had wanted to teach Linny a lesson. Even though he had taken the initiative to seduce him, this fellow did not appreciate it at all. How could he let such a blind fellow go so easily? Women were very vengeful creatures. So fierce? Women are not to be trifled with. Linny pursed his lips, pretending to be alarmed. However, he was not in a hurry. He used the butterfly subtle steps and dodged Morongjun's surprise attack at the critical moment. Big Brother Lin is indeed not simple. Her attack missed. Although Morongjun had expected this, he was still somewhat disappointed. However, this also confirmed her speculation. Lin Yi's ability was indeed far above Xiao Ran and Xiao Honkai. Otherwise, if it was Xiao Ran, even if he could dodge this attack, he definitely would not have been able to do it so easily. Morongjun saw it very clearly. Although Lin Yi's response seemed dangerous, it was completely within his control. He was able to deal with her phantom finger so easily. This man's ability was not as simple as the early stage of the foundational building realm. It was simply unfathomable. Linny smiled. Up until now, he had yet to use his true ability. Although Morongjun's ability was not bad, she was still quite a distance away from him. Although she was not considered weak among the early stage of the foundational building realm, compared to him, she was still quite a distance away. Even if he did not use a cheating move like the Chi Bomb, Lin Yi could fight evenly with Yu Jia, a middle-stage foundational building realm master, with his own ability. He could even beat his opponent half to death. However, compared to Yu Jia, Morongjun was obviously weaker. Morongjun could not help but let out a cold snort when he saw that. At the same time, she was secretly annoyed. She completely stopped looking down on him. Looking at the situation before her, it was obvious that Lin Yi, who was in the early stage of the foundational building realm, was looking down on her, who was in the peak of the early stage of the foundational building realm. Brother Lin, do you know why my move is called Phantom Finger? Morongjun suddenly giggled. Phantom Finger? Linny raised his eyebrows. Her move was fast, and the blinding white light did have the effect of confusing people. However, it did not seem to match the word phantom. Just as Lin Yi and the crowd below the ring were waiting for an explanation, Morongjun suddenly moved. At first glance, her move looked exactly the same as before. However, that was only in the eyes of the spectators below the ring. From Lin Yi's point of view, it was a completely different feeling. The phantom finger just now was merely a flash of white light. However, in Lin Yi's eyes, there were dozens of white lights coming from all directions at the same time. There was no way for him to dodge. Visual deception? Lin Yi reacted immediately. She was using visual deception to create the so-called phantom effect so that people could not defend against it. However, wasn't this a little too much? At a lower level, this kind of move was indeed brilliant and impossible to defend against. However, for cultivators above the foundational level, even if they closed their eyes and did not use their sight, they could still rely on their superhuman senses to fight. There was no doubt that Lin Yi's senses were sharp. However, when he closed his eyes, he suddenly realized that something was wrong. Because when he closed his eyes, the dozens of white lights were still in his brain. Did you think my phantom finger was only deceiving your eyes? Brother Lin, you are too childish. Seeing this, Morongjun laughed coldly. If it was such a low-level martial arts technique, how could it be her signature move? Phantom finger did not simply deceive one's sight. What it deceived was one's divine sense. At the foundational level, it was difficult to rely on basic senses such as sight and hearing to control a battle. What cultivators relied on the most was divine sense. The core of the phantom finger that Morongjun cultivated was to deceive divine sense. For most cultivators, once their divine sense could not distinguish the real from the fake, they would be at a loss. The speed was extremely fast, but it was difficult to tell the real from the fake. The phantom finger was a powerful martial arts technique that focused all the chi into one point to create explosive damage. Morongjun's target was usually the throat, which was a fatal point. Individually, these points were not too difficult to deal with. However, if they were combined, even a peak early-stage foundational cultivator would be under a lot of pressure. Interesting. Is this woman finally going all out? Lin Yi can only wait for his death. Meng Jueguang's eyes brightened as he watched. From other people's perspective, Murong Zhen's move was no different from the first test. The only person who had been deceived was Lin Yi, who was on the stage. However, Meng Jueguang had heard of the phantom finger technique before. Chapter 3881. If he couldn't tell which one was real, he couldn't dodge it. If he couldn't dodge, he could only fight it head-on. Even if he could guess the direction of the phantom finger's attack, how could he block it head-on? Other than deceiving the divine sense, the phantom finger's other specialty was that it was good at breaking through the opponent's defense. If he fought it head-on, even an expert of the same level would be afraid. Moreover, Lin Yi's ability was much weaker than Murong Zhen's. Although Meng Jueguang tempted Murong Zhen to challenge Lin Yi and imagined Murong Zhen killing Lin Yi in the ring, when the moment finally came, he suddenly felt that it was unreal. This wonderful feeling was like a dream. Unfortunately, Meng Jueguang's dream was destined to not come true. Deceiving the divine sense is indeed a brilliant technique. But in the face of absolute power, what use is it? Lin Yi put his fists in front of his throat without a change in expression. His entire body exploded with a scorching heat, giving people the feeling that they'd fallen into a sea of fire in an instant. Although Lin Yi had no way of determining which white light was the real phantom finger, he was sure that Murong Zhen had locked onto his throat. Therefore, no matter which direction the attack came from, the final target would definitely be his throat. Then things would be simple. All he had to do was protect his throat and wait for an opportunity to counterattack. Murong Zhen was shocked by the heat on Lin Yi's body. It was rare to see such a domineering fist intent. Even if Lin Yi didn't release it, the heat on the ring was enough to make people breathless. If Murong Zhen didn't use her true qi to suppress it, the clothes on her body would have burned to ashes. However, when she saw Lin Yi's action of protecting his throat, she immediately sneered. If he could block the phantom finger by simply protecting his throat, then what was the point of this beauty? Murong Zhen's thoughts moved, and the phantom finger's target instantly changed to Lin Yi's chest. There are so many vital points on the human body, and the throat isn't the only one. With her mastery of the phantom finger, even if she wanted to change it at the last moment, it would be a piece of cake. However, Murong Zhen soon realized that he was wrong. Not only was he wrong, but he was ridiculously wrong. Lin Yi was waiting for the moment she changed her target. No technique was perfect, and no matter how good the phantom finger was, it was impossible for it to be flawless. Sometimes, it would also reveal a flaw, such as the moment when she changed her target. Among the dozens of white lights, there was one that was clearly more responsive than the others. Although the difference was negligible, and it was difficult for an ordinary cultivator to detect it, Lin Yi could. 23rd style of Frenzy Fist. 2 consecutive shots. After this period of concentrated cultivation, Lin Yi had completely grasped the peak of the early stage of the foundation establishment stage. Even if it was a powerful martial skill like the 23 styles of the Frenzy Fist, he could still execute it twice in a row. His fist met the phantom finger. The other punch was aimed at Murong Zhen's face. Boom! The illusory finger and the frenzied fire fist's raging fist intent clashed head-on. Indeed, it was as Lin Yi had expected. Even though the frenzied fire fist was a tough and tyrannical martial technique, it was not able to withstand the frenzied fire fist's attack. It was also very difficult to gain any advantage. After the collision, the 23rd style of the frenzy fist was actually penetrated and stabbed into Lin Yi's chest. Fortunately, Lin Yi had a strong protective layer of vital energy. Moreover, after colliding with the frenzied fire fist, Phantom Finger was already an arrow at the end of its flight. However, the injuries on Lin Yi's body were merely flesh wounds. They did not injure any vital parts at all. On the other hand, Murong Zhen was not having such a good time. She never thought that Lin Yi would dare to divert his attention to deal with her while dealing with her Phantom Finger. He actually had the strength to deal with her. It was simply unimaginable. Caught off guard, the fiery fist intent of the wildfire fist surged toward her. Murong Zhen's beautiful face immediately turned pale. It was important to know that the Phantom Finger had consumed most of her true qi, and she was in an awkward state of having no energy left. In a panic, Morongzhan, an expert at the peak of the early stage of the foundational building realm, screamed in fear. She was at a loss for what to do, so she used the phantom finger again at the cost of suffering internal injuries. Unfortunately, the phantom finger was indeed powerful when it was used to attack. However, it was not enough when it was used to defend. The characteristic of using a single point to break the surface was completely useless in a situation like this. The phantom finger could only break the strongest point of the frenzied fire fist, but it could not block the rest of the attack at all. Bang! Morongzhan's entire body was instantly enveloped by the fiery fist intent of the frenzied fire fist. It was not enough to seriously injure or kill her, but it definitely did not feel good either. At the very least, Morongzhan's current appearance was extremely embarrassing. Not only was her hair and face unkempt from the fire, but her exposed skin was also charred. Even her thin clothes were burned into tatters, revealing her alluring body. The crowd below the stage gulped. Initially, the crowd was on Morongzhan's side. However, after enjoying the feast for their eyes, they secretly praised Linny for doing a great job. If it wasn't for the perverted Linny who helped them burn their clothes, they would not have had the chance to admire Morongzhan's beautiful body. She was indeed a little embarrassed, but there was a rare charm to her. However, Morongzhan, who was on the stage, had a stomach full of anger. She wore such thin clothes on the stage, so she did not mind the people below the stage taking a look at her. In reality, she actually enjoyed the feeling because it could attract the crowd's attention. It would make them unable to control themselves and prostrate themselves before her. However, she never thought that she would be so embarrassed by Lin Yi. After all, she had challenged Lin Yi today not only to make a deal with Meng Jueguang, but also to vent her anger. Who asked Lin Yi to ignore her and seduce Morongzhan? In the end, not only did she fail to vent her anger, she ended up in such a sorry state. She had embarrassed herself so much. How was she going to stand in front of the people below the stage in the future? Lin Yi, go. Morongzhan did not care about the awkwardness of being exposed. She gritted her teeth and was about to attack Lin Yi again. She only looked like she was in a sorry state, but she might not actually be seriously injured. At least in her opinion, she still had the strength to fight. She could not tolerate what had happened today. However, before she could finish her sentence, Lin Yi's silhouette suddenly appeared in front of her. Without a word, he raised his palm. Slap. Morongzhan was already screaming in her heart. If anyone dared to tell her that Lin Yi was only in the early stage of foundation establishment, she would definitely twist that person's head off and use it as a urinal. She would then slap herself off the arena. Was he really in the early stage of foundation establishment? This guy was at least an expert at the peak of the early stage of foundation establishment, or even stronger. Otherwise, there was no way he could have done that. Morongzhan's gaze toward him was now filled with a hint of fear. Lin Yi knew that he had achieved his goal today. He smiled and walked back to his senior brothers. Since he was able to slap Morongzhan just now, naturally, he could kill her. However, it was not the right time to kill her. If he defeated Morongzhan, nobody would notice. However, it would be different if he killed Morongzhan. Although there were more fights in the welcoming pavilion, there weren't many deaths. If the Southern Sky Gate noticed it and became suspicious, it would not be worth it. The battle today was not only a warning to Morongzhan, but it was also a warning to Meng Jueguang and the others. He did not expect them to give up, but at least he could scare them for a while, which would save him a lot of unnecessary trouble. As for his strength at the peak of the early stage of foundation establishment, it was only a matter of time before it was exposed. After all, after more than a month of observation, Lin Yi was sure that the Southern Sky Gate and Yuzha had shifted their attention away from him. Therefore, even if he were to reveal his strength at the peak of the early stage of foundation establishment, it would not be a problem. F***me. What kind of monster is this kid? Did he take the wrong medicine? Otherwise, how could his strength improve so quickly? Meng Jueguang was shocked when he sensed the powerful aura emitting from Lin Yi's body from afar. Even though he was close to breaking through to the middle stage of the Foundation Establishment realm, he was only at the peak of the early stage of the Foundation Establishment realm. In other words, Lin Yi, a newcomer from the mortal world, who had only been in the welcoming pavilion for less than 4 months, was already on par with him, the eldest senior brother in charge? That's impossible. Meng Jueguang subconsciously eliminated the possibility. If Lin Yi's success in building his foundation was due to the foundation building pill, it was still acceptable. However, he had only built his foundation for 2 months, yet he had already reached the peak of the early stage of the foundation establishment realm. That was completely unheard of. It must be the limit of the golden core. Meng Jueguang immediately came up with a more acceptable explanation. The limit of the golden core allowed a cultivator to unleash a power that surpassed their cultivation level for a short period of time. Even if the cultivator had reached the foundation establishment realm, the effect would not be weakened. As long as the cultivator was below the foundation establishment realm, it would be effective. Lin Yi must have predicted that Morong Zhan would challenge him today, so he had prepared the limit of the golden core in advance. It was even possible that he had consumed 2 golden cores in a row regardless of the cost. That was why he could defeat Morong Zhan in the arena. Right, that makes sense. Meng Jueguang's mood improved a lot. Otherwise, if Lin Yi really became an expert at the peak of the early stage of the foundation establishment realm, he would really be in trouble. It was no longer a question of whether or not he could defeat Lin Yi. In less than 4 months after entering the welcoming pavilion, Lin Yi had advanced from the peak of the heaven stage all the way to the peak of the early stage of the foundation establishment realm. Such a genius was enough to attract the attention of all the higher-ups in the Blue Cloud Pavilion. One should know that Lin Yi was not like Morong Zhan. He was born in the secular world, a real grassroots newcomer. Every breakthrough he made was proof of his talent and cultivation. If Lin Yi could maintain such a miraculous performance, it would not be a problem for him to have a meteoric rise in the future. If he had a little more opportunity, it was very likely that he would become a future leader of the Blue Cloud Pavilion, like Ramjia of the Soaring Pavilion. That was not something that Meng Jueguang could deal with. Even if he became the 3rd pavilion head of the Welcoming Pavilion, it would be useless. Chapter 3883. While Meng Jueguang was deceiving himself and others, Morong Zhan, who had been humiliated in front of everyone, looked at Lin Yi suspiciously. Then, she quietly got up and walked back to her cabin. This time, Lin Yi had given her a solid lesson. No matter how much hatred she bore in her heart, at least for now, she didn't dare to provoke Lin Yi so easily. Seeing that Morong Zhan was about to leave, Xiao Honkai could not help but want to jump out and challenge her. He was not a gentleman, and he did not know what it meant to have tender feelings for the fairer sex. Previously, when he was forced to admit defeat, he was filled with anger. Now that he had a chance to get back at her, he would not let it go easily. However, he was stopped by Lin Yi. It was not that Lin Yi was soft-hearted and wanted to let this woman go. He knew that in the battle just now, he did not use up all of Morong Zhan's vital energy, nor did he injure her severely. He only made her leave the stage. If Xiao Honkai were to challenge her now, the result would still be disastrous, so he might as well be generous. Since Lin Yi had spoken, Xiao Honkai naturally would not disobey. However, it was already the last round of the newcomer challenge. Apart from Morong Zhan, he only had his own boss, Lin Yi. There was no way for him to challenge anyone, so he was itching to fight. After a while, Xiao Hongcai's gaze finally fell on Meng Tong and he provoked, "Newcomer Meng, since we have nothing to do, why don't we fight? This is the last round. My ranking is higher than yours, so I can't take the initiative to challenge you. But don't tell me you're also holding back and don't dare to challenge me? Or are you afraid of being beaten up by me in the last 2 rounds?" As soon as he said this, the audience, who were still immersed in the shock of Lin Yi slapping Morong Zhan, suddenly became interested again. Lin Yi had just finished beating up Morong Zhan, and Xiao Honkai immediately went to provoke Meng Tong. Today was indeed the last round of the newcomer challenge competition. It was so exciting. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, the lumber waste, whom he looked down upon, provoked him. With his bad temper, Meng Tong could not tolerate it. F*CKU. If it was Linny who said this, then it would be fine. But you're just a useless subordinate, and you dare to provoke me? Who the hell do you think you are? You want me to challenge you, right? Fine, I'll fulfill your wish. Today, I'll let you die knowing. Not waiting for Meng Jueguang to speak, Meng Tong took the initiative to jump into the arena, sneering at Xiao Hongkai and beckoning with his finger. If not for Morongzhan, according to Meng Jueguang's original plan, he planned to let him consume the Meridian Heart-Shattering Pill to increase his strength to the peak of the early stage of the Foundation Establishment realm, then he would challenge Lin Yi. But now, because of Morongzhan, Meng Tong was not in a hurry. After all, if Morongzhan fought against Lin Yi first, he would not lose anything. So his strength was still at the early stage of the Foundation Establishment realm. If the one who provoked him was Lin Yi, then Meng Tong would not have the confidence to go into the arena. Meng Tong really didn't have the confidence to go on stage. However, the other party was just trash Jiao. You were lucky enough to survive the previous 2 times, so why are you so arrogant? Every time I provoke him, he wins. This guy is really an obedient idiot. Xiao Hongkai smiled, rolled up her sleeves, and walked into the arena. The crowd was boiling. Every time these 2 guys fought, it was bloody and tragic. Today was really a good show. If you have any last words, leave them quickly. Otherwise, people will say that I'm inhumane. I'll kill you later, and people will say that I don't even allow people to leave their last words. Meng Tong sneered disdainfully. He had not consumed the Meridian Heart-Shattering Pill yet. But in the past, Meng Jueguang specially gave him a lot of supplementary pills to nourish his body so that he could withstand the powerful medicinal power of the Meridian Heart-Shattering Pill. So even if Meng Tong was not the peak of the early stage of the Foundation Establishment realm, his condition was better than ever. He had no chance of winning against Lin Yi, but if it was just a mere lumber waste, he did not care at all. However, Xiao Hongkai looked at him as if she was looking at an idiot. Why don't you leave some for yourself? You were beaten like a dead dog 2 times in a row. I'm curious where you get your confidence from. Looking at your expression, did you take some medicine? Or did you take the wrong medicine? Humph. Sharp-tongued. Meng Tong snorted coldly and attacked angrily. He had always put himself on the same level as Lin Yi. Naturally, he would not waste his breath on a small fry like Xiao Hongkai. Even though both of them were injured twice, Xiao Hongkai was still not worthy of his attention. Feeling the strength of Meng Tong's leg, Xiao Hongkai was slightly stunned. It's a little stronger than before, but I haven't rested for the past 2 months. Bang, bang, bang. A series of muffled sounds of fists and kicks landing on flesh could be heard. The fight between Xiao Hongkai and Meng Tong was as brutal and bloody as ever. They were too familiar with each other. There were no tricks. It was purely a head-on fight. Half an hour later, in front of everyone's shocked eyes, Meng Tong was thrown out of the arena by Xiao Hongkai like a dead dog. Although he was in such a miserable state that he could barely stand, there was no doubt that Xiao Hongkai had won this time. Motherf *Ker. Meng Jueguang's eyes were wide open. When Meng Tong was provoked into going up the arena, he had already sensed that something was wrong. However, Meng Tong's brain was full of paste. Before he could stop him, Meng Tong had already fallen into the trap and went up the arena. Now, more than a month's worth of elixirs had been wasted. If he wanted to let Meng Tong take the Meridian Heart-Shattering Pill, he would have to start from scratch again. This guy was a *King useless fool. However, seeing that Xiao Hongkai could barely win against Meng Tong, this made Meng Jueguang even more certain that Lin Yi and his gang must have taken the extreme golden pill. Not only did Lin Yi use it, even Xiao Hongkai must have used it. Otherwise, with his huge disadvantage in martial arts, it was impossible for him to defeat Meng Tong at his peak condition. Unbeknownst to him, his victory over Meng Tong was the result of Xiao Hongkai's 2 months of hard work. Heaven rewarded the diligent. Not everyone could be like Xiao Hongkai, spending 24 hours a day on cultivation. First, there was the pinnacle battle between Lin Yi and Morongzhan. Then, there was the tragic battle between Xiao Hongkai and Meng Tong. With these 2 powerhouses taking the lead, the other rookies were also influenced. They seized the last chance to challenge as though they were on stimulants. Even Cha Wu, who had nominally fallen into cave abode 16 at the foot of the mountain, mustered his courage to make one last attempt. Of course, Cha Wu's title of being a weakling among Blue Cloud Pavilion's rookies was confirmed in the end. He was defeated without any suspense. When the final round of the challenge ended, other than 2 or 3 people, all the other rookies of Blue Cloud Pavilion were injured. A few of them had serious injuries that were in no way inferior to Meng Tong's. It was obvious how tragic it was. Chapter 3884. In Lin Yi's group, other than Lin Yi, who was confined to cave abode number 1 at the foot of the mountain, Xiao Ran and Xiao Honkai had earned a lot of challenge points, especially Xiao Honkai. Although she had been entangled with Meng Tong, she had earned a total of 96 points from beginning to end, which was the highest among the rookies in Blue Cloud Pavilion. Xiao Ran did well too, earning 75 points. As for Lin Yi, he only had 2 chances to fight in the past 2 months. The first time was against Cha Wu, and the second time was against Murongzhan today. He had earned a total of 18 points. As for the smug Meng Tong, he had only earned 54 points because of Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongcai's sudden rise. He did not even achieve half of his expectations. He did not even achieve the minimum goal of overtaking Lin Yi. It was a complete failure. Ignoring the spiritual medicine test that had yet to be completed, the rookies in Blue Cloud Pavilion were ranked first with 138 points, tied for first place with Xiao Honkai and Lin Yi with 138 points. Meng Tong was ranked third with 126 points. Xiao Ran was ranked fourth with 118 points. Li Jingming was ranked fifth with 73 points. This result was out of everyone's expectations. No one had expected that Xiao Honkai, who was known as Trash, would suddenly emerge as a well-deserved dark horse and sit on the throne of first place. It was so dazzling that it blinded everyone's eyes. Looking at the ranking, Meng Jueguang's face turned as black as the bottom of a pot. The rumors had already revealed that as long as he could break through to the mid-stage of Foundation establishment in the near future, becoming the 3rd Pavilion Master of Welcome Pavilion would be a foregone conclusion. This was supposed to be a joyous occasion, but the point ranking in front of him was a slap to his face no matter how he looked at it. He had spent a large amount of resources, but the newcomer under him couldn't even get second place. How could he call himself the 3rd Pavilion Master in the future? Just as Meng Jueguang was filled with anger, someone suddenly delivered an exquisite invitation card. Looking at the name of the person on it, Meng Jueguang was stunned. Meng Jueguang's eyes lit up. Early the next morning, someone triggered the cave abode's restriction. When Lin Yi saw the person in front of him, he couldn't help but be slightly stunned. This time, the person who came was actually Blue Cloud Pavilion's publicly acknowledged weakling, Cha Wu. "Why are you looking for me?" Lin Yi looked Cha Wu up and down in surprise. Because Cha Wu stood up to challenge him in the first round of the challenge, he had a deep impression of this weakling. He was weak and liked to speculate, but he didn't have much wisdom. He only had that little bit of cleverness, and he wouldn't amount to anything in the future. This was the impression that Cha Wu had left on Lin Yi. It was not an injustice that this fellow would become the weakling at the bottom of all the rookies. He only had himself to blame. Cha Wu blushed when he was stared at by Lin Yi. He shrunk his neck weakly before he heard Lin Yi say, "Other than this, is there anything else? If there isn't, then forgive me for not sending you off." All right. Boss Lin Yi, then this lowly one will take his leave first." Cha Wu could only turn around and leave in disappointment. He thought that since he had taken the initiative to provide this information to Lin Yi would at least show some appreciation. In the end, he did not gain anything and came here for nothing. Lin Yi looked at Cha Wu's back and shook his head with a smile. This Cha Wu was really thinking too much if he wanted to rely on such information to gain recognition. Indeed, he only had petty tricks and could not be put on the table. However, the information provided by Cha Wu was still very valuable to Lin Yi. Although Murongzhan was an out-and-out coquettish woman, there had never been a precedent of her staying overnight after she came here. Even the so-called tea party in the wooden house was only a feast for the eyes. It did not have any substantial benefits. However, Meng Jueguang was actually able to stay overnight in the wooden house. With Murongzhan's coquettish nature, It was obvious what would happen if a man and woman were to be alone in a room. And the background of this matter was the final battle of the Rookie Challenge yesterday. Morongjun had been slapped off the stage by Lin Yi. On the other side, Meng Tong had been beaten half to death by Xiao Hongkai. Putting everything together, the conclusion was very obvious. This woman, Morongjun, was prepared to get involved with Meng Jueguang and hug each other for warmth. From the separation of the three kingdoms to the alliance of Wu against Wei, Lin Yi had expected this, but he did not expect the two to react so quickly. They had already gotten together last night. Chapter 3885. Among the newcomers in the Blue Cloud Pavilion, Lin Yi and his gang were the most powerful. After the battle yesterday, there was no doubt about it. Whether it was Meng Jueguang or Morongjun, they would only be looking for trouble if they fought them alone. However, if the two of them worked together, the situation would become a little tricky. Meng Jueguang was about to be promoted to the third pavilion leader of the Welcome Pavilion. Be it his power or influence, both would increase by a notch. Now that he had Morongjun, an expert at the peak of the early stage of the foundation-building realm, and Meng Tong, they would have two experts at the peak of the early stage of the foundation-building realm if they took the Meridian Heart-Shattering Pill. A formation like this was already invincible in front of the newcomers. From Meng Jueguang's point of view, even if Lin Yi did not rely on the Golden Pill to send Morongjun flying during the battle, and purely relied on his own strength, there was nothing to worry about. Two peak early-stage foundation-building experts working together. How could they not be able to defeat a mere Lin Yi? As for Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongkai, these two early-stage foundation-building experts, Meng Jueguang no longer cared about them. Once they lost Lin Yi's protection, these two would only be stepping stones for Morongjun and Meng Tong to step on. Two peak early-stage foundation-building experts? Hee, interesting. Lin Yi shook his head and smiled indifferently. He did not seem to be worried at all. The people that posed a fatal threat to him were the South Heaven Gate and Su Lingqiong. As for Meng Jueguang and Morongjun, who were right in front of him, he had already categorized them as shrimp soldiers and crab generals. They were nothing to worry about. Even with his current strength, it was more than enough to deal with them. Besides, the next two heart-devouring exquisite herbs would soon mature. Once he successfully refined the foundation-building pill, he would immediately advance to the mid-stage foundation-building realm. Morongjun and Meng Tong, if they were not shrimp soldiers and crab generals in his eyes, what else could they be? The Rookie Challenge had ended. In less than a month's time, the Welcoming Pavilion did not arrange any assessment tasks for the rookies. Only after the trial of elixirs had ended would the fifth segment of the newcomer assessment officially begin. Morongjun and Meng Jueguang teaming up would not affect Lin Yi in the short term. Even if these people wanted to work together to do something, they would have to wait until the fifth round of the newcomer assessment. This period of time was the best opportunity for the other rookies to recuperate after the long and tiring Rookie Challenge competition. At the same time, it was the best opportunity for them to nurture their elixir seeds. After all, they had nothing else to do during this period of time. There was no newcomer assessment mission, and even the 3-month mining contract signed with Spirit Jade Hall had already expired. It just so happened that he could focus on cultivating the last batch of spiritual medicine seeds without any distractions. This was also the initial plan of many rookies. In the first 2 months of the challenge, they had only experimented with a small number of spiritual herb seeds to gain experience. Most of their efforts were left for the final month. How many points they could obtain in this segment, or whether or not they could protect their points from being deducted, all depended on their performance. The days passed one by one. The rookies rushed to the Pill Hall's Spirit Medicine Nursery before the deadline. Overall, the trial of elixirs was very beneficial to the rookies, especially to the rookies from Blue Cloud Pavilion who had the worst conditions. It was exactly the same as what he had expected. It was a completely deceptive segment. Even if they had the last month to cultivate with all their might, the final result was that besides Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongkai, both of them had submitted 6 spiritual herb seeds. Other than that, the one who did the best was Meng Tong, but he only managed to cultivate a total of 3 spiritual herb seeds. The others generally only managed to cultivate 1 or 2 spiritual herb seeds. There were even quite a number of people who ate duck eggs. In other words, according to the calculation of points for the trial of elixirs, other than Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongkai, even Ming Tong, who had the best results, would have some points deducted in this segment. As for the others, needless to say, it was even more dismal. Fortunately, these people were quite sensible when choosing the spirit herb seeds. They only chose at least 10 spirit herb seeds. If they had chosen more than that, they might have lost more than 10 points in this segment. They wouldn't even have a place to cry. However, under the reminder of someone, the rookies recalled that when choosing the spiritual herb seeds, not all the rookies had only submitted 10 spiritual herb seeds. A certain impressive Blue Cloud Pavilion rookie had submitted a maximum of 40 spiritual herb seeds in one go. However, now that the deadline had arrived, this pretentious head of Blue Cloud Pavilion's #1 rookie had not submitted a single spiritual herb seed that had been cultivated into a living form. This was the mentality of most people. Even these cultivators were no exception. If they were unhappy with their own losses, they would definitely find a way to balance it out with others. At least in the trial of elixirs, Lin Yi was definitely the one who could make them feel the most at ease. Back then, he had drawn a total of 40 spiritual herb seeds, but now there was no movement at all. That meant that this guy would have 40 assessment points deducted all of a sudden. To be able to see the #1 rookie suffer such a setback, what a delightful thing to see. This was originally Lin Yi's matter. No matter how many points he had lost, it had nothing to do with the others. However, under the deliberate incitement of people like Meng Jueguang and Meng Tong, it became extremely popular. Especially on the day of the deadline, all the Blue Cloud Pavilion rookies came out in full force. They did not do anything else just to watch Lin Yi suffer. Seeing Meng Jueguang leading the Blue Cloud Pavilion rookies to surround the entrance of Lin Yi's cave abode early in the morning, the bitter senior, Xiao Ran, and Xiao Hongkai could not help but look at each other. This bunch of people must be sick in the head. Instead of cultivating, they came here to watch boss. They must have nothing better to do. Even if the boss loses 40 points, it's only a matter of time before he can take first place. What does this bunch of weaklings have to do with it? Xiao Hongcai's face was filled with displeasure as he looked at everyone's gloating expression. Even the honest senior, at this moment, was filled with righteous indignation. Meng Jueguang is too despicable. He is stirring up so many people to fan the flames. He is just trying to get rid of the prestige that junior brother Lin has built up in the previous rounds. This way, he can cover up his own incompetence. Although they stood on Lin Yi's side, even the bitter senior could not help but break out in cold sweat for Lin Yi. Chapter 3886. If they want to watch the show, then let them watch. Who knows who will be the one making a fool of themselves later? Xiao Ran, who was at the side, didn't seem worried at all. His and Xiao Hongcai's spiritual herb seeds were cultivated by Lin Yi. The two of them only handed in 6 seeds, and this was already deliberately holding back. If it wasn't for the fear of arousing suspicion by handing in too many seeds, the two of them could have handed in even more. After all, with the poor conditions of the newcomers in Blue Cloud Pavilion, it was already very rare to cultivate 6 spiritual herb seeds out of 10. If they handed in more than that, it would be a little too ridiculous. Moreover, with Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongcai's current positions, the points from the spiritual herb trial were already insignificant to them. There was no need to arouse suspicion for a mere point. The spiritual herb seeds that Lin Yi cultivated for the two of them had such a high survival rate, but his own spiritual herb seeds were completely annihilated. How is this possible? Based on Xiao Ran's understanding of Lin Yi, this boss of his might be deliberately hiding it so that some clowns would be humiliated. Not only Xiao Ran, but Li Zhengming also had the same thought in the crowd, waiting for Meng Jueguang's group to be slapped in the face. Amidst the bustling crowd, the door of cave abode #1 at the foot of the mountain finally opened. When Lin Yi saw the crowd blocking his door, he was obviously a little stunned. Oh, so early? Lin Yi smiled slightly, but his next words immediately made everyone's faces darken. I heard such a big commotion just now, and I thought a group of beggars had appeared and blocked my cave abode to beg for food. I didn't expect it to be you guys. How interesting. Beggars. You're the one who's begging. Everyone cursed in their hearts. However, When they thought about it carefully, weren't they just beggars blocking the door to beg for food? Sending themselves to the door to be ridiculed. Just thinking about it, they were really cheap. At this moment, Meng Jueguang couldn't help but say, Lin Yi, have you forgotten what day it is today? Today? Lin Yi thought for a moment. Suddenly, he slapped his head and said, That's right, senior brother Meng. You've reminded me. Is today the day of the spirit jade distribution? In the past few times, you always gave me the smallest. This time, you can't be biased anymore. Also, if anyone wants to exchange spirit jades with me, hurry up and line up to bid. First come, first served. F*CK me. What the F*CK was going on? Was this kid really stupid, or just pretending to be stupid? Meng Jueguang was stunned for a long time. He was already cursing in his heart. However, Murong Zhan, who was beside him, couldn't help but burst into laughter. Putting aside his strength and standpoint, Lin Yi was quite an interesting person. Lin Yi, don't try to change the topic. I have to remind you that today is the last day of the trial of spiritual medicine. Previously, you submitted 40 spiritual medicine seeds in one go, but now, you haven't submitted a single one. Do you know what the consequences will be? Meng Jueguang snorted coldly with a straight face. When everyone heard this, they instantly became spirited. Here comes the show. What consequences? Isn't it just a deduction of 40 assessment points? Lin Yi said with a playful expression. Deducting 40 assessment points? Humph. Wasting 40 spiritual medicine seeds that my spiritual medicine nursery has painstakingly cultivated. Junior brother, aren't you thinking too simply of the consequences? Before Meng Jueguang could say anything, someone in the distance had already responded on his behalf with a cold snort. The crowd couldn't help but be shocked. Hearing the voice, they looked over and saw 3 figures slowly approaching from afar. Beside him were 2 familiar faces, Kang Xiaoming and Zhong Pingliang. The one in the middle was the leader. The person in the middle was the sissy manager of the spiritual medicine nursery that they met in the pill hall when they distributed the spiritual medicine seeds. Why was this person here? Lin Yi raised an eyebrow when he saw this. But when he saw this situation, even if he used his toes to think, he could guess that this sissy manager's sudden arrival was something that Kang Mingming and Meng Jueguang had discussed beforehand. Senior brother Bitter quickly gave Lin Yi a look. This person had come with ill intentions. They had to be careful today, otherwise, something big would really happen. Lin Yi, however, smiled noncommittally and looked on coldly from the sidelines, waiting to see what would happen. When the sissy manager of the spiritual medicine nursery approached them, the newcomers in Blue Cloud Pavilion all perked up. No matter how sissy this person was, he was still someone who held authority in the pill hall. Now that he had personally come to cause trouble for Lin Yi, the excitement today was really not in vain. Kang Mingming walked over and said with a chuckle, Boss Lin Yi, when I was tallying up the assessment points, I discovered that all 40 of your spiritual medicine seeds were wiped out. I felt that this matter was a little strange, so I specially invited the manager of the spiritual medicine nursery over to take a look. This is my duty. I hope you don't mind. This guy was really despicable. Xiao Hongkai, Xiao Ran, and the others raised their middle fingers in unison. Lin Yi's eyelids twitched when he heard this, but it wasn't because of Kang Mingming's despicable face. It was because this was the first time he had heard this name. The manager of the spiritual medicine nursery? This name was truly worthy of this manager's sissy temperament. Which other man would come up with such a F***king name? The manager of the spiritual medicine nursery carefully sized up Lin Yi with her phoenix eyes. She raised her thumb and middle finger and said in a strange tone, Junior brother, when you reported 40 spiritual medicine seeds previously, I reminded you out of goodwill, right? That's right. Lin Yi nodded lightly. I clearly told you beforehand that the newcomers in Blue Cloud Pavilion can't nurture any spiritual medicine seeds with such conditions, but you still stubbornly chose it. Back then, I thought you were an alchemist and had some ability, but I didn't expect all 40 spiritual medicine seeds to be wiped out. Do you know what this means? The manager's voice became increasingly flirtatious, almost comparable to Murong Zhan's. I don't know. Please enlighten me, manager spiritual medicine nursery. Lin Yi was still calm and composed. Every spiritual medicine seed, even if it's mass-produced, is still something that the entire spirit medicine nursery has put in a lot of effort. This time, the higher-ups have given the order to take them out for the newcomer assessment. Even if you know that you'll lose more than 80% of the spiritual medicine nursery, I have nothing to say. At this point, the manager's voice suddenly turned cold. However, you clearly know that you don't have the ability, but you still insisted on reporting 40 spiritual medicine seeds. This is not normal. Can I take it that this junior brother is deliberately destroying the fruits of my spirit medicine nursery's hard work? Without waiting for Lin Yi's response, Meng Jueguang already chimed in. That's right. Although I, Meng Jueguang, am the newcomer manager of Blue Cloud Pavilion, I will not blindly shield or be partial to this kind of irresponsible behavior that damages the precious resources of the 3 pavilions. Manager Spiritual Medicine Nursery, I promise you that you can do whatever you want with Lin Yi. We will do our best to cooperate. Chapter 3887. Very well, then I'll have to trouble Steward Meng to subdue this Lin Yi first, then report this to the Pill Division's elder, the spiritual flower steward said decisively. He wasn't in cahoots with Meng Jueguang and the others, but he really felt sorry for those spiritual medicine seeds. There were 40 of them, and they were all destroyed by a newcomer who didn't know what was good for him. It was a reckless waste of resources. If he didn't punish them as a warning to others, what would happen to the spirit medicine nursery if the newcomer assessment was held in the future and everyone followed suit? All right, Meng Jueguang suddenly shouted. Before he finished his sentence, he immediately attacked Lin Yi. The powerful aura around his body was clearly visible, shocking everyone present. Middle stage foundation building. Even Lin Yi couldn't help but be slightly stunned. Meng Jueguang's strength was only at the peak of the early stage foundation building, the same level as Morongzhan. Now, he had actually broken through to the middle stage foundation building. Before the crowd could react, Meng Jueguang's claw had already reached Lin Yi's shoulder. Although he didn't use any powerful martial arts techniques, he didn't hold back at all. If Lin Yi hadn't broken through to the middle stage foundation building before this, based on his strong performance of slapping Morongzhan in the closing battle of the challenge, Meng Jueguang might not have dared to fight him. If he couldn't defeat Lin Yi in public, then his position as the eldest senior brother would have come to an end, and he would never have a chance to make a comeback. However, now that he had an absolute advantage in terms of strength and encountered such a good excuse, if he didn't quickly teach Lin Yi, his nemesis, a lesson, then he, Meng Jueguang, would no longer be Meng Jueguang. He might as well change his name to Bitter. Today, Meng Jueguang was going to show everyone who had the final say in Blue Cloud Pavilion. Was it Lin Yi, the blind and pretentious newcomer, or was it him, Meng Jueguang, the big senior brother in charge? An expert in the middle stage of the foundation establishment realm, even if he did not use any powerful martial skills, he could completely crush Lin Yi's shoulder with all his might, even if Lin Yi did not take the golden elixir. Even a genuine expert at the peak of the early stage of the foundation establishment realm would suffer a great loss. However, before Meng Jueguang's claw could grab hold of him, Lin Yi's shoulder suddenly exploded with a strong burst of vital energy, catching Meng Jueguang off guard and causing him to suffer a hidden loss. Hiss! Meng Jueguang felt a wave of pain and hurriedly withdrew his hand. He was shocked and fearful in his heart, but on the surface, he put on an act and said, Lin Yi, I'm saving you some face, so I didn't use my full strength. If you don't know what's good for you, then you will be regarded as disobeying the 3 pavilions. Don't blame me for being rude. Hee, in that case, I really have to thank senior brother Ming for holding back. Otherwise, my shoulder would have been crippled, right? Lin Yi raised his eyebrows and laughed. That's for sure. Junior brother Lin, you can't be so arrogant to think that you can face a middle stage expert alone, right? Meng Jueguang sneered contemptuously. Middle stage of the foundation establishment realm? He could even kill a peak late stage foundation establishment realm in an instant. Why would he be afraid of a new middle stage foundation establishment realm cultivator? Lin Yi couldn't help but laugh. If it weren't for everyone's eyes, he wouldn't have been able to. Just based on the fact that Meng Jueguang dared to attack him just now, He had already made a move to kill him. Since he was able to beat Yu Jia half to death back then, dealing with Meng Jueguang was naturally not a problem. At this time, Xiao Honkai suddenly stood up and said, "Boss, if one is not enough, how about counting me in?" Xiao Ren also opened his mouth and said, "Count me in too." Seeing the two of them jump out, the other newcomers were instantly shocked. Things seemed to be getting out of control. However, seeing this, Meng Jueguang did not get angry. Instead, he laughed and said, "You want a rebel? Don't blame me for not reminding you." Capturing Lin Yi to see the Pill Hall Elder is the consensus of Pavilion Head, who, in the Pill Hall's upper echelons. From the beginning to the end, there is reason and evidence. Whoever dares to disobey will be regarded as openly rebelling. According to the three pavilions' rules, they can be killed without mercy. As he spoke, Meng Jueguang gave Morong Zhan and Meng Tong a look, and each of them stared at Lin Yi and the rest. This time, they had the right and proper sword in their hands. Even if they killed Lin Yi and the others, the three pavilions wouldn't hold them accountable. On the other hand, if Lin Yi and the others dared to fight back, they'd be committing treason. Even if they died, they'd die for nothing. Wait. Senior brother Ming, please wait, there's a misunderstanding. Seeing that the situation was not good, senior brother Ku Bai hurriedly stepped forward to mediate. He was originally a little worried about today's matter, and now, the situation had indeed developed in the most dangerous direction. Meng Jueguang had clearly set a trap for Lin Yi. For a hot-blooded young man like Lin Yi, once he lost his composure and was agitated to the point of committing a crime of rebellion, his life would be over. The three pavilions would not let any rebel off. Misunderstanding? Everyone saw how Lin Yi fought back just now, and now you're lying through your teeth, saying it's a misunderstanding. You're protecting him so unprincipled, aren't you? Are you ready to go along with him? Meng Jueguang casually put a big hat on him. Did you secretly sell those 40 seeds? He had already realized that this was an excellent opportunity to bury Lin Yi and the rest, including senior brother Ku Bai. Senior brother Ku Bai was suddenly speechless. He was not good with words. In this situation, if he said anything wrong, he might be killed. He did not dare to speak carelessly. Take them down. Without giving Lin Yi and the rest a chance to think of countermeasures, Meng Jueguang ordered and took the lead to attack Lin Yi again. This time, he did not underestimate his enemy, nor did he intend to hold back. Gloomy Bone Claw, 23 forms. Gloomy Bone Claw, as its name suggested, was an extremely sinister martial arts technique. It was said that when cultivated to an extremely high level, the bones of one's entire hand would begin to change shape and gradually become a real gloomy bone claw. As for Meng Jueguang, although his hand had not completely turned into a non-human claw, compared to a normal person's hand, it was already very deformed. This was a sign of strength. Meng Jueguang attacked Lin Yi again, and the other newcomers had already moved aside. Senior brother Ku Bai, Xiao Ran, and Xiao Honkai, on the other hand, were being closely watched by Morong Zhen and Meng Tong. Although Lin Yi had always been very strong, and could even suppress Morong Zhen, a master at the peak of the early stage of the Foundation establishment realm, no one at the scene would think that he was Meng Jueguang's opponent. After all, Meng Jueguang was a master in the middle stage of the Foundation establishment realm. They were not on the same level at all. Even Li Jingming and Zhong Pingliang couldn't help but feel a little restless. If Lin Yi really could not defeat Meng Jueguang, they would help Lin Yi even if they had to expose their identities as spies. Chapter 3888. Meng Jueguang's eyes couldn't help but twitch as he stroked his right hand, which was slightly fractured. He didn't get the upper hand again in this exchange. Lin Yi was just a kid from the secular world. Did he really have such unfathomable strength? Meng Jueguang looked at Lin Yi again with a hint of fear in his eyes. Although Lin Yi had been going against him since he came to Heaven Class Island, this was his first time fighting with Lin Yi. The result of the test also proved that Meng Tong and the others had suffered under Lin Yi's hands time and time again, and it wasn't without reason. This result made him secretly shocked, but his goal had been achieved. Brothers, Lin Yi has disobeyed the orders of the higher-ups. This is considered a rebellion. Hurry up and take down this traitor. Those who respond will be heavily rewarded. Meng Jueguang immediately called out with a cold smile. In his eyes, the fact that Lin Yi dared to defy him in front of everyone with the warning he'd given just now meant that Lin Yi was a dead man. There was no need for him to waste any more energy on him. His archenemy, who had troubled him for 4 months, actually fell for the trap so easily. The situation developed so smoothly that even Meng Jueguang himself didn't expect it. It even felt a little unreal. No matter what, he'd finally gotten rid of a huge threat today. So what if Lin Yi was strong? He was just a brainless idiot. He'd just need to set up a trap, and he'd be sent to his death. As for the rest of the Blue Cloud Pavilion newcomers, if they could get rid of the number 1 newcomer, Lin Yi, not only would they get the heavy reward that Meng Jueguang mentioned, but they could also get rid of this abnormality. At least they wouldn't look so useless. It was killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Just as Meng Jueguang was feeling very pleased with himself, the surrounding newcomers had surrounded Lin Yi's group. The 2 spies, Li Jingming and Zhong Pingliang, couldn't help but want to help. Suddenly, Lin Yi smiled. Traitor? Senior brother Meng is so sinister. But I would like to ask, what is my crime? Lin Yi asked with a faint smile. Deliberately destroying the precious resources of the 3 pavilions and disobeying the orders of the higher-ups, isn't that enough to be a traitor? Meng Jueguang snorted. Hearing this, Lin Yi smiled even more playfully. Let's not talk about the rest. Just the first one, deliberately destroying the precious resources of the 3 pavilions. Where's the evidence? Meng Jueguang sneered and didn't say anything. He extended his hand and made an inviting gesture to the spiritual flower manager. This kind of thing didn't need him to waste his breath. You clearly know that you don't have the ability to do so, but you still went ahead and warned us in advance. You insisted on choosing 40 spiritual medicine seeds, but in the end, you didn't even manage to grow a single one. Isn't that proof? The spiritual flower manager said with an unfriendly expression. Lin Yi shook his head with a light smile. Manager Ling Hua, everything you've said is correct, but there's one thing you're wrong about. What is it? He frowned. Not a single one has been cultivated. Who gave you this information? As far as I know, today's the deadline. We won't be able to make a decision until sundown, right? Lin Yi said seriously. Meng Jueguang was amused and said mockingly, So what? To this day, could it be that you can still conjure up living elixir seeds? If you can only make 1 or 2, I advise you not to embarrass yourself. Living spirit herb seeds could only be cultivated under special conditions in the spirit medicine nursery. So, everyone, including Meng Jueguang, had long believed that even if Lin Yi's 40 spirit herb seeds weren't completely wiped out, they were almost all dead. It was impossible to cultivate them in batches on the last day. This was something no one could do. Indeed, even Lin Yi couldn't do the latter, but the former was a piece of cake. And senior brother Meng, if the results I hand in can satisfy you, what will you say about today's matter? Lin Yi said with a meaningful smile. Satisfy us? Meng Jueguang looked at Lin Yi's fearless expression and couldn't help but shiver. He couldn't help but start to mutter. Did the kid really wait until today to hand over the seed? Other people wouldn't have the guts to do that, but with Lin Yi's attitude of showing off all the time, it wasn't a possibility that could be ruled out. Meng Jueguang rolled his eyes and smiled evilly. That's simple. Your subordinates, Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongkai, have each handed in 6 spirit herb seeds. As their boss, your results can't be worse than your subordinates, right? My request shouldn't be too much, right? What senior brother Meng means is that as long as junior brother Lin also hands over 6 living spirit herb seeds, today's matter won't be his fault, right? Senior brother Ku Bai's eyes lit up. He also knew that Lin Yi helped Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongkai cultivate spirit herb seeds. In his opinion, even if Lin Yi really played with fire until the last day, it shouldn't be a problem for him to take out 6 living spirit herb seeds. 6? Junior brother Ku Bai, do you have a pig's brain? Don't you understand human language? Meng Jueguang snorted coldly. Next to him, Meng Tong jumped out and said with a smile, Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongkai were able to hand in 6 seeds when they only received 10. According to this ratio, Lin Yi has received 40 seeds, so he has to hand in at least 24 seeds. Now, do you understand my ninth cousin's meaning? When they found out that Xiao Ran and Xiao Honkai had each cultivated 6 spirit herb seeds, he and Meng Jueguang suspected that the two of them must have cheated. Maybe they went outside to buy the seedlings. However, because they didn't have any evidence, they didn't say anything. Now, they could use it to trick their boss Linny. Hiss. The bitter senior brother and the others immediately gasped. Out of the 40 spiritual herb seeds, they had to cultivate 24 of them to live. Even the professionals in the spirit medicine nursery couldn't do this. However, before they could refute, Meng Jueguang was already the first to say with a smile, "Spirit flower manager, do you think this is a good way to deal with it?" Since he's Manager Meng's subordinate, then naturally, Manager Meng has the final say. I just want an explanation. I don't want the 40 spirit herb seeds that our spirit medicine nursery has painstakingly cultivated to be wasted, the spirit flower manager said with a frosty expression. He wasn't stupid. He could already tell that Meng Jueguang was using this opportunity to cause trouble. It seemed like he wanted to clean up the spirit medicine nursery. However, this had nothing to do with him. From his point of view, the only reason he came here today was to make an example out of the others. He wanted to set a rule for the newcomer assessment in the future. Chapter 3889. If Lin Yi couldn't meet this requirement, then even if he could produce a few living spiritual medicine seeds, he would still be guilty of deliberately harming precious resources. His previous act of resistance was evidence of rebellion, enough to make him die without a burial place. Senior brother Ku Gua and the others couldn't help but look at each other. This idiot actually had the cheek to say that this was business. Then, according to his standards, shouldn't Meng Tong and the others be hung up and beaten up as a warning to others? 24 seeds. Even Xiao Ran and Xiao Honkai couldn't believe that Lin Yi could produce so many seeds. Meng Jueguang was planning to use this opportunity to force Lin Yi into a dead end today. Unexpectedly, Lin Yi smiled disapprovingly. 24 seeds? I thought that senior brother Meng's requirements would be very high. I didn't expect that you would only have this little insight. How disappointing. Huh. What nonsense is this fellow talking about? Meng Jueguang and the others were stunned. Then their faces were full of ridicule. Lin Yi, this pretentious leader, really didn't change. Now that he was about to die, he still couldn't change his stupid character. Lin Yi didn't continue to pay attention to them. He turned around and entered the cave abode. When he came out again, he was holding a cultivation tank that was originally distributed by the Spirit Medicine Nursery. Looking at the things in the cultivation tank, Meng Jueguang and the others couldn't help but look at each other. This cultivation tank was actually filled to the brim with 10 fresh and tender seedlings. Seeing these seedlings, Meng Jueguang and the others were only shocked. However, the sissy supervisor of the spiritual flowers was completely stunned. His pair of phoenix eyes stared straight at the seedlings, full of disbelief. There are only 10 of them. There's still a long way to go. Meng Jueguang refused to give up. However, at this moment, he was feeling extremely fortunate. Fortunately, he was careful and cleverly used Xiao Ran and Xiao Honkai, the two cheaters, to make an issue out of it. Otherwise, Lin Yi would have succeeded in showing off today. He secretly kept 10 seedlings and did not hand them over until the deadline. Lin Yi probably already knew that they would come and make things difficult for him. He was really cunning. However, as the saying goes, the devil rises 10. Lin Yi's good days came to an end. He could take out 10 seedlings, but could he take out 24 seedlings at once? Even if he thought with his toes, he would know that it was simply impossible unless he cheated. Senior brother Meng, when did I say that was everything? Lin Yi looked at him as if he was looking at an idiot. He turned around and went back into the cave. I'd like to see how long you can hold on for. Before Meng Jueguang could finish his sentence, he forcefully swallowed his words. He saw Lin Yi bring out another cultivation tank. There were another 10 seedlings on it. Holy **T. Meng Jueguang's eyeballs almost popped out. Murong Zhan, Meng Tong, and the rest all looked incredulous. They had the same question mark in their minds. How did this guy do it? Before they could question him, Linny turned around and went back into the cave. When he came out again, he was carrying 2 cultivation tanks. One had 10 seedlings, while the last one had 9 seedlings. One had 10 seedlings, and the last one had 9 seedlings. A total of 39 seedlings. That should be the standard that senior brother Ming mentioned. Can we talk about what happened just now? Lin Yi's expression suddenly turned cold. He said, as the senior brother in charge of the newcomers, you attacked the newcomers without asking the right and wrong. Senior brother Ming, can you tell me what kind of crime this is? Feeling the cold, murderous intent in Lin Yi's tone, even Meng Jueguang could not help but shiver. In the 3 great pavilions, even if the other ordinary disciples attacked the newcomers, it was a serious crime. As the senior brother in charge of the newcomers, he would be punished even more if he knowingly broke the law. This was not a joke. If Lin Yi really made a big deal out of this and alerted the higher-ups of the 3 great pavilions, Meng Jueguang would not be able to bear the consequences. He would not even be able to keep his current position as the supervisor of the newcomers, let alone be promoted to the 3rd pavilion leader of the Welcome Pavilion. He would also be severely punished. By then, all his hard work over the years would be ruined. At this point, everyone present was completely shocked. They thought that Lin Yi was going to be the unlucky one, but in the blink of an eye, the situation had changed completely. A total of 39 fresh and tender spiritual herb seedlings. Lin Yi's counterattack was too sudden. It was a slap to the face. Hee, boss is mighty. Let's see what you idiots have to say now. Xiao Hongkai, senior brother Kubai, and Xiao Ran looked at each other and laughed proudly. Meng Jueguang became anxious when he saw that everyone's eyes were starting to change, as if they were going to scatter like monkeys when the tree falls. He suddenly had an idea and shouted, "Wait, you only received 40 spirit herb seeds, but now you suddenly took out 39 seedlings. I have every reason to suspect that you are cheating." Cheating? Lin Yi raised his eyebrows non-committally. You have to be responsible for what you say. I advise senior brother Ming to think carefully before you speak. Otherwise, apart from attacking a newcomer and adding malicious slander, don't blame me for being merciless. Meng Jueguang thought that he had grasped the last life-saving straw. He snorted with certainty. It just so happens that the spiritual flower supervisor is here. Whether it is cheating or not, he has the right to say it. 40 spiritual herb seeds, but 39 seedlings were produced in the end. Furthermore, they were all one-off. If this was not cheating, Meng Jueguang was even willing to twist his head off and let Lin Yi kick it like a ball. From his point of view, these 39 seedlings of Lin Yi might have been bought from somewhere at a low price to make up the number. All right, then let the spiritual flower supervisor decide. Lin Yi laughed softly and nodded calmly. While the two were talking, the spirit flower manager, the sissy, was completely immersed in the 39 seedlings Lin Yi had brought out, unable to pull himself out of it. It was only after a long while that he came back to his senses, holding his forehead with a cry. Under Meng Jueguang's ardent gaze, the spiritual flower supervisor's gaze swept between him and Lin Yi before he said, 40 spiritual herb seeds to grow 39 seedlings. Not to mention the simple and crude environment of the Blue Cloud Pavilion, even in the most suitable environment of the Spirit Medicine Nursery, with the best professionals handling it, it would still be impossible to achieve such a high survival rate. Did you hear that? This is what the spiritual flower supervisor, the chief specialist of the Spirit Medicine Nursery, personally said. Meng Jueguang said proudly. Chapter 3890. The supervisor of Spirit Flower took a deep look at him and continued. These seedlings seem to have been growing for a while, and their quality is very good. The spiritual herb seeds provided to the newcomers were cultivated in batches to be congenitally deficient. In theory, no matter how good the outside environment is, it's impossible to grow seedlings of such quality. This is also something that no one can do. Well, now Lin Yi, what else do you have to say? In Meng Jueguang's view, the 2 points mentioned by the supervisor of Spirit Flower had completely confirmed the fact that Lin Yi had cheated. Cheating in the crucial newcomer assessment didn't sound as serious as rebellion, but it was also a serious crime. In this way, Lin Yi's name would at least be blacklisted by the three pavilions, and he would never be able to make a name for himself in the North Island in this life. Unexpectedly, Lin Yi frowned and looked at Meng Jueguang, saying, "Senior brother Meng, the supervisor of Spirit Flower is a guest from afar, and his status and power are no less than yours. Don't you think it's rude of you to interrupt him like this?" What the hell? Meng Jueguang almost spat out blood. In front of everyone, he was called rude by Lin Yi, a newcomer in the secular world. It was so intolerable. Lin Yi, don't try to change the subject. According to what the supervisor of Spirit Flower just said, you've already been convicted of cheating. Let's see how you can defend yourself now. Meng Jueguang couldn't help but swear. I've been convicted of cheating? Lin Yi was instantly amused. Senior brother Meng, you just said that the supervisor of Spirit Flower has the most right to speak here. Why can't you wait to jump out and pronounce the sentence before the supervisor of Spirit Flower says anything? Slap yourself in the face. Isn't this our senior brother Meng's specialty? Xiao Hongkai, who was standing beside him, said with a smile. Meng Jueguang's face darkened again. Seeing that everyone was looking at him, he could only suppress his anger and maintain his composure. All right, then I'll have to trouble Supervisor Ling Hua to pronounce the sentence. Today, I'll let you die knowing. Everyone's eyes focused back on the Spirit Flower Steward. He took a deep breath and said slowly, "Fine. Then let me tell you the result. This junior brother Lin Yi, he did not cheat." Quack? He didn't cheat? Meng Jueguang and the crowd were dumbfounded. He pointed at Lin Yi and stammered, How? How is this possible? Manager Ling Hua, you couldn't have made a mistake, right? The spiritual flower manager shook her head and said in a similarly incredulous tone, "To be honest, I also find it hard to believe. However, these 39 seedlings were indeed grown from that batch of seeds. This cannot be faked." Why? Meng Jueguang quickly asked. Because these seeds were all marked with the vital energy unique to the spirit medicine nursery. No one can imitate it. Therefore, we can confirm that junior brother Lin Yi did not cheat, the spiritual flower steward said with certainty. Did you hear that? Senior brother Meng, what else do you have to say? Lin Yi immediately sneered. He had already noticed the vital energy mark on the seeds when he was channeling vital energy into them. That was why he dared to do that today. Even if the spiritual flower steward and Meng Jueguang were in cahoots, he was not afraid. However, from what the spiritual flower steward had said, he and Meng Jueguang were not the same kind of people. This saved him a lot of trouble. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Meng Jueguang was in a difficult position this time. Not only did he frame his new subordinate, he even attacked him recklessly. If this accusation was pursued, it would be a serious one. Everyone can testify for me. I was wholeheartedly working for the public. Even if there was a mistake along the way, it's understandable. The higher-ups will definitely look into every detail. Lin Yi, don't think of framing a good person. Meng Jueguang was at a loss for words. However, he still stubbornly said, Framing a good person? From what you said, you're framing my boss Lin Yi. What do you mean by that? Xiao Hongkai was instantly angered. This Meng Jueguang was too shameless. Spiritual flower steward, you were a witness from the beginning to the end. What do you say? Lin Yi ignored Meng Jueguang and turned to look at the spiritual flower steward. Regarding today's matter, Steward Meng was indeed a little rash. He was at fault first. The spiritual flower steward immediately made his stand clear. Today, he had followed Kong Ming here with the intention of working for the public. He was not in the same boat as Meng Jueguang. Naturally, there was no need for him to take the blame for Meng Jueguang. All right, I will report this matter to the higher-ups. I hope that the spiritual flower steward can speak up for justice. Lin Yi cupped his hands and said. The spiritual flower steward glanced at Meng Jueguang. Normal people would not do something like offending someone for no reason. However, he still nodded and said, All right. However, Junior Lin Yi, can you tell me how you cultivated these seedlings? It's hard to imagine the survival rate of such good quality. I'm very curious. As the head steward of the Spirit Herb Nursery, the only thought on his mind right now was to figure out the secrets on Lin Yi's body. Out of the 40 seeds that were congenitally deficient, he had managed to grow 39 seedlings of good quality. It was an exaggeration to say that the survival rate was close to 100%. If he wasn't moved by this, then he wouldn't have earned his position today. If he could get his hands on this secret, it would be equivalent to getting a huge treasure for the spirit medicine nursery. Not to mention offending a mere Mengju Egwang, even offending the head of the Welcome Pavilion, Hu Yunfeng, wouldn't be a problem. Spirit Flower Steward, you should know that this is a hidden trump card. Even the spiritual herb planters in the spirit medicine nursery wouldn't share it easily, would they? Linny rejected without hesitation. That's true. I was being rude. The spiritual flower steward couldn't hide the disappointment in his eyes, but he didn't give up. Then, if there's a chance, Junior Lin E, would you like to work in the spirit medicine nursery? Of course, you can also work in the elixir hall. Don't worry about the salary. Everything is negotiable. Well, we'll see how it goes, Linny said noncommittally. Right now, he was just a newbie in the Welcome Pavilion. As for his future development, he could only take it one step at a time. His main goal was to go to the Middle Island and find Zhang Liju. If it could be of some help, then he wouldn't mind working anywhere. But if it was of no benefit, then he could only politely decline. Seeing that Lin Yi didn't seem to be particularly tempted, the spiritual flower steward couldn't help but look at him in a higher light. Neither arrogant nor rash. This Lin Yi was quite interesting. Chapter 3891. My pleasure, Kong Ming said eagerly. Although he had Su Lingchong behind him, he still wanted to enter the Hall of Pills in the future, and this spirit flower manager was considered a mid-level member of the Hall of Pills, and it was said that he had a powerful background. If he could form a good relationship with him, it would be a good thing. He specially invited this person over today, other than to discuss how to deal with Lin Yi with Mengju Egwang. The other reason was to curry favor. Now that his first goal had failed, he had to grasp the remaining one, in case he got nothing. Unexpectedly, just as Kong Ming was about to flatter him, the spirit flower manager already pointed at the 4 cultivation tanks Lin Yi took out. Then I'll have to trouble Brother Kong to help me move them back to the spirit medicine nursery. Remember to come alone. I have something urgent to do, so I'll be leaving first. With that, the spirit flower manager swaggered away, leaving Kong Ming staring at the 4 huge cultivation tanks alone. When he came back to his senses, he wanted to cry, but no tears came out. He could only look to Zhong Pingliang for help. The spirit flower manager said that only you can go. I can't help even if I want to. Zhong Pingliang shrugged, secretly gloating. Lin Yi and the others laughed. Although this spirit flower manager was a sissy, he was a clever person. In order to show his innocence, he cut ties with Kong Ming and used this kind of thing to disgust Kong Ming. Only he could think of something like this. The culture tank wasn't heavy, but it was big. Plus, the seedlings inside couldn't be bumped or damaged. If someone really took 4 of them all the way to the spirit medicine nursery 20 miles away, even someone like Kong Xiaoming, who was at the early stage of foundation establishment, would be in a difficult position. Serves him right. This kind of bastard deserved to be dealt with like this. The spirit flower manager left, and Kong Ming stumbled away with the 4 cultivation tanks. As for the main character, Mengju Egwang, he was given the cold shoulder, and even had to wait anxiously for someone to settle the score. It was a good show. Just like that, Linny had dealt with it so easily. It really made the crowd who were watching the show deeply understand what it meant to be the #1 rookie. This was not the end of the matter. With the help of his bitter senior brother, Lin Yi divided the complaint into 3 parts and simultaneously sent them to the higher-ups of 3 places: the Welcoming Pavilion, the Law Enforcement Hall, and the Blue Cloud Pavilion. This time, it was finally Mengju Egwang's turn to be restless. Framing a newcomer and rashly making a move, this crime was no joke. If this complaint was only sent to Hu Yunfeng's hands, it wouldn't be a big deal. After all, Hu Yunfeng was one of his own people, and he would definitely protect him. But if it was someone from the Enforcement Hall and Clear Cloud Pavilion's upper echelons, he, Mengju Egwang, wouldn't be able to hook up with them. In addition, the spiritual flower caretaker had also stepped forward to testify for Lin Yi. If they were to go by the book, Meng Jueguang would be the one to do it this time. Even if he didn't die, a layer of his skin would be peeled off. 3 days later, all the rookies in the welcoming pavilion gathered at the back mountain hall. The 5th round of the rookie assessment was about to begin. Before the pavilion master, Hu Yunfeng officially announced the start. The rookies gathered in groups of 2s and 3s and chatted. Junior brother Lin, I asked senior brother Lu to find someone to help me inquire about this matter regarding the lawsuit against Meng Jueguang. I'm afraid it's going to fall through, sigh. Senior brother Bitter said to Lin Yi with a frown. Although he was an honest person, he had been oppressed by Meng Jueguang for too long. In terms of resentment towards Meng Jueguang, he was definitely the one with the deepest resentment. This time, he finally managed to get hold of the other party's weakness. Senior brother Bitter really hoped to make Meng Jueguang suffer, or even directly step on him. However, the news that came from above these 2 days made his heart sink. Hu Yunfeng did not have much hope for the 3 papers of complaint. It was just a formality. However, the law enforcement hall and the Blue Cloud Pavilion also put on a stance of holding back, which made people's jaws drop. Actually, there's nothing to be disappointed about. This was already expected. Linny shook his head indifferently. Unlike senior brother Bitter, he did not expect Meng Jueguang to really be severely punished by the higher-ups. After all, he had Su Lingchong backing him up. For the sake of Su Yuanjing, the 3rd elder of the Soaring Sky Pavilion, as long as it was not a big matter, they would more or less give him some face. It couldn't be helped. Where there were people, there would be underworld. This was the underworld of Heaven Stage Island. Therefore, this time, when senior brother Bitter sent out the 3 complaints, Lin Yi's real purpose was just to make a warning to Meng Jueguang and his subordinates, so that they would not dare to be so unscrupulous again. After all, there would always be a time when favors were useless. Su Lingchong could protect him this time. Would he protect him a 2nd time or a 3rd time? Not to mention whether Meng Jueguang would give him face. If Meng Jueguang was really stupid to this point, this young Master Su would probably have kicked him away long ago. There was no need to save him. Boss, look. Meng Jueguang's eyes are already green when he looks at you. It's like he wants to skin you alive. Xiao Honkai chuckled. Linny laughed. Let him be, but this guy isn't an idiot. He'll learn from his mistakes, and I don't think he'll dare come looking for trouble in the open after what I did to him. At most, he'll use underhanded methods like before. Underhanded means? Meng Jueguang is a living tragedy in front of our boss. When did he take advantage? If his hand comes, his hand will be broken. If his leg comes, his leg will be broken. If his skull comes, he will be smashed into pieces. Xiao Honkai curled her lips and sneered. The bitter senior brother and Xiao Ran couldn't help but laugh when they heard this. Xiao Hongsai's words were crude, but the logic was not crude. Xiao Hongsai's witty words were really the same when used on Meng Jueguang. It was a tragedy. However, the next assessment is in the outer area of the back mount. Just like the previous newcomer trial, the 3 of you still have to be careful. Otherwise, it will be easy for others to take advantage of you. The bitter senior couldn't help but remind them, it's better if he comes looking for trouble. I haven't taken revenge for the last time. This time, I must get back at him. Xiao Honkai clenched his fist and snorted. In the previous newcomer trial, he was the most miserable one among them. If it was not for Lin Yi's timely appearance at the last moment, he and Xiao Ran might not have survived. Xiao Ran at least had the shadow step to struggle for his life. But he, Xiao Honkai, would definitely die. Now, the newcomer trial was changed to the newcomer assessment. The location was also in the outer area of the back mountain, but the strength of the enemy was completely reversed. Chapter 3892. While everyone was talking, everyone was already in place. Hu Yunfeng immediately announced, the 5th round of the newcomer assessment, the spiritual beast trial. I believe that all the newcomers are familiar with this mission. It is to capture a spiritual beast as your pet. In the cultivation world of Heaven Stage Island, spiritual beasts as pets were extremely common. Any expert with a bit of strength would definitely have a spiritual beast with them. Let's not talk about the distant ones. Miss Shangwan's little curly bear was a living example. Regarding this, the newcomers present were already envious. However, firstly, their strength was low, and secondly, they did not have the extra spiritual jades to raise a spiritual beast. They could not even satisfy the most basic requirement of taming a spiritual beast, a spiritual pet talisman. Therefore, they could only think about it for the time being. Spiritual pet talisman was the most common and reliable way to tame a spiritual beast on Heaven Stage Island. However, the price was not low. Even the lowest level spiritual pet talisman would cost at least 100 spiritual jades in the market. Other than the second-generation cultivators in Soaring Sky Pavilion, the other newcomers could not afford it. After a pause, Hu Yunfeng continued, "This time spiritual beast assessment will last for a month. The location will still be the periphery of the back mountain. Before you set off, each of you will be given a low-level spiritual pet talisman. After a month, the points will be evaluated. As for the specific evaluation method and some things to take note of, Manager Meng Jueguang will introduce it to everyone." Seeing Meng Jueguang walk up the stage in high spirits to Hu Yunfeng's side, the newcomers were all confused. This guy was just a newcomer manager of Blue Cloud Pavilion, but there were all the newcomers from the 3 pavilions present. What was the situation with him going up to introduce them? For this kind of thing, even if Pavilion Master Hu Yunfeng did not personally introduce them, there was still second Pavilion Master Feng Song. At the very least, Kong Ming, the newcomer manager, would be more reasonable than Meng Jueguang, right? However, Lin Yi and the others were well aware of this. Meng Jueguang was about to be promoted to the position of the 3rd Pavilion Master of the Welcoming Pavilion. Now that it was already a foregone conclusion, Hu Yunfeng was clearly doing Meng Jueguang a favor by doing this, so that Meng Jueguang could show his face and establish his prestige in the future. I was wondering why this guy was dressed so pretentiously today, like a duck that was going to be sold. Looks like he's planning this, Xiao Hongkai said with a strange expression on his face as he curled his lips at Lin Yi's group. Lin Yi nodded and said, "It's probably because they saw that Meng Jueguang has been forced into such a sorry state by us for the past 2 days, so they took this opportunity to save some face for him. Otherwise, even if he takes the position of 3rd Pavilion Master, he will still be disgraced. Alas, when I think about how senior brother Lu was pushed away by him, I can't help but sigh. I feel uncomfortable in my heart. If he really stabilizes the position of 3rd Pavilion Master, I'm afraid he'll be even more overbearing in the future." Senior brother Kubai sighed when he heard this. However, Lin Yi patted his shoulder and comforted him with a smile. "Senior brother Kubai, you don't have to be too pessimistic. Every dog has its day. When the time comes, who knows who will be lucky and who will be unlucky? Just wait and see." Clearing his throat on the stage, Meng Jueguang then said with a solemn face, "The evaluation of the points in this round of the Spirit Beast Assessment is divided into 2 aspects. The first is the points of the Spirit Beast level, and the second is the points of the Spirit Beast strength. The 2 points add up to the final points of this round." Looking at Meng Jueguang's pretentious behavior, the audience couldn't help but feel sick. However, due to their own interests, they could only endure the disgust and continue listening. The so-called points of the Spirit Beast level were based on the level of the Spirit Beast captured by each newcomer. Each level corresponded to different points. Unranked 5 points, Yellow 10 points, Profound 15 points, Earth-ranked 20 points, Heaven 25 points. As for those above the Heaven stage, it was impossible because the low-level Spirit Pet Talisman that the Welcome Pavilion issued to the newcomers could at most subdue Heaven stage perfect Spirit Beasts. For those at the Foundation Establishment stage, a mid-level Spirit Pet Talisman was needed. The low-level Spirit Pet Talisman could not guarantee the effect at all. The so-called points of the Spirit Beast strength were to let the Spirit Beasts that the newcomers subdued fight with each other. The rules were completely different from the newcomer challenge. It was a simpler and clearer single-round elimination system. The newcomers of the 3 pavilions would draw lots to determine their opponents. Every time they won a round, they would get 10 points of the Spirit Beast strength. The loser would be eliminated. The highest points of the Spirit Beast level were 25 points, and the highest points of the Spirit Beast strength were 40 points. Added together, it was the theoretical highest points of the Spirit Beast assessment round, 65 points. Compared to the previous 4 rounds, the theoretical points were not high, but for the newcomers, this round was undoubtedly the most practical and exciting round. Even if they did not mention the points, they could at least earn a spirit pet for free, so why not? After explaining the rules of the points, Meng Jueguang reminded them one last time. Newcomers, because this assessment round is at the periphery of the back mountain, everything must be done according to the rules of the back mountain hall. Do not do anything stupid like touching the prohibition. Also, the back mountain is strictly prohibited for anyone to casually enter or leave, and you are no exception. So although the spirit beast assessment has a month, if you leave midway, it means that you have given up the remaining opportunities and will not be able to enter the back mountain again. After hearing this, the newcomers immediately began to discuss. Even Lin Yi could not help but squint his eyes. They gave enough time for a month, but they did not allow anyone to casually enter or leave. This arrangement was a bit interesting. For an entire month, there was only one low-grade spirit pet charm. One chance would be gone once it was used up, so the rookies naturally chose to wait and see. After all, good steel should be used on the blade's edge. If they were to waste it on inferior spirit beasts, wouldn't it be a waste? However, after hearing Meng Jueguang's words, the newcomers had no choice but to readjust their strategy. The back mountain was filled with ferocious beasts. Even if it was just the periphery, it was still a dangerous place. This was something that the newcomers had experienced during the previous rookie trial. In such a place, almost no one could rest well. If they stayed for too long, they would tire themselves out. When the time came, not to mention capturing a spirit pet, they might even lose their lives. As such, between the risks and benefits, the newcomers had to weigh the pros and cons in their hearts. In the end, to capture a spirit pet and leave quickly, or to risk their lives to wander around a few rounds, this was a dilemma that every newcomer had to face. If they were lucky, they might receive a gift from the heavens, but if they were unlucky, their lives would be in danger. All right, the rules and precautions have been explained clearly. Newcomers, if there are no other questions, come over to collect the spirit pet charm and prepare to set off. Hu Yunfeng said. Chapter 3893. However, although the distance between them was very far, and the possibility of them meeting each other was very small, there was still an entire month's time. If someone really wanted to cross over, there was still a chance of them meeting each other. Boss, how are we going to move this time? Separate or together? Xiao Hongkai asked softly. Due to the long duration of the assessment, it was unrealistic for rookies from the same pavilion to be separated. Therefore, the rookie placement was not as strict as the previous rookie trial. If rookies wished to form a team, they could request to be placed together. Lin Yi thought about it, then said to Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongkai, "For the sake of caution, let's go together first." The previous experience was still fresh in Lin Yi's mind. As soon as he went down, he encountered 2 extremely powerful foundation establishment stage spirit beasts. If it was any other newcomer, they would probably wet their pants on the spot. It was almost certain that they would lose their lives. There was obviously something fishy about this arrangement. Lin Yi was afraid that the other party would use the same trick again. Although he was fine, Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongkai might not be able to handle it. Moreover, Meng Jueguang now had Murong Zhan, an expert at the peak of the early foundation establishment stage. If she joined forces with Meng Tong and the others to attack together, they would be a very big threat. They had to be careful about this. After the 3 of them finished discussing, they were released by the staff of the back mountain hall. As expected, as soon as the 3 of them landed on the top of the tree, they realized that something was wrong. The place where the 3 of them had landed looked like a huge tree nest, and a spirit beast was crouching in the tree nest. It looked like some kind of eagle spirit beast. Oh, it feels like it's in the early heaven stage. Boss, our luck is not bad. Xiao Hongcai's eyes lit up. Just as he said, this eagle did not look very strong at first glance. It was in the early heaven stage. For this spiritual beast assessment, it was simply a tailor-made spiritual pet delivered to their doorstep. To be able to meet such a suitable choice as soon as he landed, his luck was really not just for show. However, when Xiao Ran saw this scene, he said with some hesitation, "This doesn't feel right. Something is indeed wrong." This guy is just a cub, Linny said with a wry smile. The eagle in front of him was too familiar. It looked exactly the same as the ghost-eyed golden eagle he saw last time. Huh? Early heaven rank, and it's still a cub? How ferocious would an adult be? Xiao Honkai was shocked. Even though he had always been courageous, when he saw the chirping little condor in front of him, his eyes flinched a little. If I'm not mistaken, this thing is called a ghost-eyed golden eagle. An adult's strength is at least in the middle stage of the foundation establishment stage. It might even be stronger than this, Linny said with some fear in his tone. The ghost-eyed golden eagle he encountered last time was in the middle stage of foundation establishment, but it did not mean that it was the limit of their clan's strength. It was entirely possible that they were stronger than this. Hiss. Xiao Ran and Xiao Honkai both sucked in a breath of cold air at the same time. Above the middle stage of foundation establishment, what the F***CK, how could they deal with it? One had to know. Even at the same level, the actual combat power of many spirit beasts was far above that of human cultivators. Especially the ghost-eyed golden eagle, which was an overlord-level bird of prey in the sky. It was simply a natural fighting race. It was almost invincible in the same level. If there was really a ghost-eyed golden eagle in the middle stage of foundation establishment, the three of them did not have the confidence to fight it at all. Lin Yi might have a chance to save his life, but Xiao Ran and Xiao Honkai, then they were really not far from death. Originally, the space in the jade pendant was guarded by the ghost thing. Even if they really provoked an existence like the ghost-eyed golden eagle, Lin Yi was not worried. But what made him helpless was that after the ghost thing heard about the contents of the spirit beast trial, it had already made it clear that it would not intervene, unless Lin Yi himself was in a fatal threat. This matter was not difficult to understand. Although the ghost thing was now only a spirit, it was, after all, an elder of the spirit beast clan. Usually, it helped Lin Yi to intimidate other spirit beasts, but if it said that it helped human cultivators like Lin Yi to subdue spirit pets, it was a bit unreasonable. If these spirit beasts were willing to follow humans, then he had nothing to say, but the problem was that they were going to use the spirit pet talisman to subdue the spirit beasts, which was completely against the will of the spirit beasts. The ghost thing could already be considered open-minded if it did not jump out and kill them. If they wanted him to help them, then it was simply a fool's dream. It's not good to stay here for a long time. Let's retreat first, Lin Yi suggested. Xiao Ran immediately nodded in agreement. The young ghost-eyed golden eagle in the early stage of heaven stage in front of him was not scary, but if they continued to stay here, there was no telling when the adult ghost-eyed golden eagle would come, and then it would be big trouble. However, Xiao Hongcai's footsteps were a little hesitant, looking quite reluctant to leave. You don't want to subdue it, do you? Lin Yi asked with a twitch of his eyelids. Xiao Honkai was silent for a moment, took a deep breath and said, Boss, you two go first. I want to stay and try. What? Honkai, are you kidding? Xiao Ran was taken aback. At this time, even if he hurriedly ran, he might not be able to guarantee that he would be able to escape unscathed. This guy actually wanted to subdue the young in front of him. It was like pulling a tooth out of a tiger's mouth. He must be crazy. Lin Yi also frowned. This is not a small matter. Honkai, you have to think clearly. If we run now, the ghost-eyed golden eagle may not chase after us. But if you subdue its young, then it will definitely not rest until you die. At that time, the consequences will be 9 out of 10. In human society, subduing a young was no different from abducting a child. Once the parents found out, they would definitely retaliate crazily, and it was the same for the ghost-eyed golden eagle. With the ghost-eyed golden eagle's strength and mobility, if Xiao Honkai was really targeted by it in the periphery of the back mountain, it would already be very optimistic to say that 9 out of 10 would be a dead end, and 10 out of 10 would be a bloody reality. Boss, I know, but the stronger the adult, the more precious this young, isn't it? I really don't want to let go of such a good opportunity, even if I have to risk my life for it. Xiao Honkai said with a resolute expression. At first sight of this little eagle, Xiao Honkai had the impulse to subdue it, and after knowing that this was a ghost-eyed golden eagle, and that the adult's strength was at least above the middle stage of the foundation establishment stage, this impulse became even stronger. One must know that he was a grassroots loose cultivator with no background, and if he had not met Lin Yi, perhaps he would be in the same situation as Cha Wu, who was at the bottom of the ladder, and it would be difficult for him to have a chance to turn things around. As for high-grade spiritual pets, that was even more wishful thinking. Chapter 3894. Looking at Xiao Hongcai's impulsive expression, although Linny felt that this was a bit risky, he still nodded in the end. All right then, there's not much time. Hurry up and do it. I'll keep a lookout for you. But there's no need for Xiao Ran to take the risk. He can leave first. Boss, don't look down on me. If you're here, I'm here. Xiao Ran immediately said. Xiao Hongcai was startled when he heard this. His face couldn't help but be moved. He quickly waved his hand. Boss, Xiao Ran, this time it's my own matter. I deserve to throw caution to the wind, but it's not right for the two of you to get involved. If something were to happen, I won't be able to live in peace for the rest of my life. You guys should hurry up and leave. Linny patted his back and laughed. Just relying on yourself, what do you think your chances of survival are? Come on, don't waste any more time talking nonsense. Hurry up. Xiao Hongcai looked deeply at the two of them, and no longer dilly-dallying. He immediately turned his head and pounced towards the young bird. The adult ghost-eyed golden eagle might return at any time, and if he could not successfully subdue it before then everything would be in vain. In order to tame a spiritual beast, there were two basic requirements. One was to have a spiritual pet talisman of the corresponding grade. The other was that the captor had to personally injure and subdue the spiritual beast and obtain its blood. This young ghost-eyed golden eagle's strength was probably at the early stage of Heaven stage, but if they were to really fight, it was estimated that even a mid-stage Heaven stage expert might not be able to defeat it, and it was a ferocious bird, with a natural advantage in the air. After all, Xiao Hongcai was an early-stage foundation establishment expert. With his strength, it was naturally more than enough to deal with this young eagle, but the premise was that the other party didn't escape. Otherwise, if it really flew into the air, he and Lin Yi wouldn't be able to do anything about it. Fortunately, although this young eagle had been chirping wildly since the beginning, it didn't have any intention of taking off to escape, but had been squatting in its nest, staring at Lin Yi and the others. Even when Xiao Hongcai pounced at it, it didn't fly away immediately. Instead, it fiercely used its undeveloped sharp claws to scratch back. Even Xiao Hongcai, a foundation-building early-stage expert, was left with several bone-deep claw marks. From this, it could be seen how ferocious its battle strength was. Boss, could it be that this cub still can't fly? Otherwise, why isn't it running away? Xiao Ran, who was watching from the side, couldn't help but wonder. The more powerful the spirit beast, the longer its growth period. For example, the ghost-eyed golden eagle was not small. It was already at the early stages of the Heaven rank, but there was still a long way to go before it reached adulthood. It was normal for it to not be able to fly. Linny said thoughtfully, maybe. But ghost-eyed golden condor, this kind of vicious bird, is not only powerful, it's also extremely sinister and cunning. I keep having the feeling that this cub doesn't have any good intentions. It can't be. You mean this little guy didn't escape in a hurry because he wanted to bait us and wait for the adult ghost-eyed golden eagle to come back? Xiao Ran looked like he had seen a ghost when he heard that. Nothing is impossible. Spirit beasts at this level of strength are already very intelligent. They are not inferior to humans when it comes to scheming and scheming. Don't underestimate them. Linny sighed. Last time during the newcomer's trial, whether it was the ghost-eyed golden eagle that almost killed him or the nine-tailed cloud leopard that he killed, the scheming they displayed was chilling. It was not unreasonable for Lin Yi to speculate about the cub in front of him. Let's not talk about anything else. Just now, this cub kept calling out. Maybe there was some kind of telepathic connection between it and its parents. The adult ghost-eyed golden eagle might already be on its way back. While the two were talking, Xiao Hongcai had already successfully subdued the cub. For this, she did not hesitate to pay the price of dozens of terrible claw marks all over her body. After all, time was limited. Every second she stayed here was one more second of danger. In comparison, paying the price of this injury was already a profit. She mixed the cub with her own blood, smeared it on the spirit pet talisman, and then stuck it on the cub's forehead. The success or failure of this adventure depended on this move. Although in theory, the low-level spirit pet talisman could at most subdue spirit beasts at the peak of heaven stage, this was only in theory. The higher the level of the spirit beast, the more difficult it was to subdue it, and the lower the success rate. This was an eternal truth. The low-level spirit pet talisman could be used to subdue spirit beasts with no rank or yellow rank. However, when it reached the level of heaven stage, the success rate had fallen to less than 40%. Even if the preparation was good in advance, whether it could succeed or not still depended on luck. The reason why this spirit pet talisman could be used to subdue spirit beasts was basically equivalent to a strong brainwashing. Once the master was recognized, a spiritual connection would be established between the spirit pet and its master, making it obedient. Other people, including high-level spirit beasts, could kill it, but they couldn't make it yield. Even the pressure between spirit beasts would lose its effect. This was the advantage of the spirit pet talisman, but the disadvantage was that it would bring a lot of mental burden to the master. After all, when brainwashing the spirit pet, the master would also suffer side effects. Moreover, this spiritual connection existed for a long time. If there were 2 more spirit pets, the master was likely to have a mental breakdown. In addition, the spirit pet that was subdued by the spirit pet talisman would have its spirituality erased to a certain extent, so its real strength was slightly inferior to that of wild spirit pets. Lin Yi and Xiao Ran waited anxiously for half an hour before they saw Xiao Honkai let out a long sigh of relief and said, "It's done." At this time, the cub had completely fainted, but Lin Yi and Xiao Ran could clearly feel that the original unruly and fierce temperament on its body had disappeared, and it was replaced by a little more docility unique to spirit pets. Although it was a little pity, it was inevitable. There were gains and losses. "It's coming." Just as the 3 of them were preparing to retreat, Lin Yi's eyelids suddenly twitched, and then he felt that the sky had darkened, and the top of his head had already been covered by a huge black shadow. In the end, he still couldn't escape this disaster. The adult ghost-eyed golden eagle had returned. Feeling the powerful pressure of this overlord in the sky, Xiao Ran and Xiao Honkai couldn't help but be stunned. A casual flap of its wings could break countless giant trees in the sky. What a terrifying power. "You 2 leave quickly. I'll take the cub. Split up and act quickly." Lin Yi hurriedly ordered in a hurry. With the cub by his side, it could attract the ghost-eyed golden eagle's attention, and Xiao Ran and Xiao Honkai wouldn't be in too much danger. As for himself, with the ghost thing's protection, his safety was naturally not a problem. Chapter 3895. Even though this was risky, it was still better than carrying an unconscious cub. Even if this cub was not fully developed, it was still more than 100 kilograms heavier than a human. If they were to move together, not only would that person become the ghost-eyed golden condor's target, but their speed would also be greatly slowed. The outcome was almost certain death. However, Lin Yi had his own considerations for doing this. In order to cover Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongcai's safe escape, bringing along the cub was the best choice to attract the attention of the ghost-eyed golden condor. Moreover, the ghost had just given him a hint. Once this kind of cub was tamed by a human as a spiritual pet, it had completely separated from the wild spiritual beast community. If its spiritual beast parents found out, not only would they not continue to protect and provide for it, they would directly kill it. Because it had been brainwashed, it would only listen to its master's orders. Therefore, in the eyes of its parents, it had become an out-and-out alien species, which they would quickly get rid of. However, Xiao Ran and Xiao Honkai did not know about this. In fact, even if they knew, they would not let Lin Yi do such a dangerous thing. Especially Xiao Honkai. If he killed Lin Yi because of his impulsive act of taming a spiritual pet today, he would live in self-blame and regret for the rest of his life, living a life worse than death. However, they did not have the chance to speak. Seeing that Lin Yi was carrying the unconscious cub on his body, the ghost-eyed golden condor immediately flew into a rage. Its 2 giant wings suddenly flapped, and an incomparably strong wind came down from above. Boom! The tree under their feet was already extremely thick, requiring at least 5 people to wrap their arms around it. Even so, it still could not withstand the strong wind stirred up by the ghost-eyed golden condor. After a loud noise, more than 10 giant trees in the surroundings were all broken. Xiao Ran and Xiao Honkai could not stand steadily and fell into the dust. Fortunately, they were both early-stage foundation establishment experts. Although Xiao Honkai was in a sorry state and even vomited a mouthful of blood due to her injuries, it was not enough to kill her. Amidst the chaos of broken branches that filled the sky, when the two of them finally stabilized their bodies with great difficulty, Lin Yi had already disappeared without a trace. Even the adult ghost-eyed golden eagle above them had disappeared without a trace. Xiao Honkai panicked and wanted to look for Lin Yi, but she was stopped by Xiao Ran. With your current condition, even if you chase after him, you will only be a burden to Boss. Don't worry, Boss never does things he's not sure of. If he dares to do this, he must have a plan. But we can't just leave Boss like that, can we? Xiao Honkai said anxiously. Then wait for me. I'll go up and take a look. Xiao Ran said, and directly leaped up a giant tree not far away. It was simply unrealistic to search for Lin Yi in this vast forest. The only way now was to use the ghost-eyed golden eagle to determine Lin Yi's position. Although the ghost-eyed golden eagle's body was huge, it could not move at all. Although the ghost-eyed golden eagle's body was huge, it was very difficult to see it from below. They could only go up to the top of the tree. Xiao Honkai also wanted to follow up, but he was not an agile expert. He did not know how long it would take to wait for him to climb up the tree. What's more, he was still injured and could only wait for Xiao Ran's news below. After waiting anxiously for a moment, seeing Xiao Ran fly down from the top, Xiao Honkai hurriedly went forward and asked, "How is it? How is Boss?" Xiao Ran had a strange expression on his face. He scratched his head and said, I don't know what to say." "What do you mean? Boss is in danger? Tell me quickly." Xiao Honkai suddenly became even more anxious. No, the ghost-eyed golden eagle's current position is about 10 miles north. However, when I saw it just now, it has been circling around that position, as if it has been searching, but it has not landed. Xiao Ran's tone carried a bit of disbelief. "What do you mean?" Xiao Honkai still did not understand. Xiao Ran pinched his chin and speculated. "It gives me the feeling that this ghost-eyed golden eagle seems to have lost Boss's whereabouts, which is why it is wandering around like this. How is this possible?" Xiao Honkai could not help but be stunned. As a powerful spirit beast above the middle stage of the Foundation establishment stage, and it was also an overlord-level bird of prey in the sky, there was no doubt that its perception was powerful. Once locked on by it, even an expert whose strength was above it might not be able to get rid of it, let alone Lin Yi. I also don't know how Boss did it, but from the looks of it, it seems to be the case. Although Xiao Ran also had a face of disbelief, seeing is believing, he could not help but believe it. Then what do we do now? Xiao Honkai scratched his head. If Lin Yi was in danger, according to his character, he would definitely rush over without saying a word, but the current situation was somewhat confusing. Xiao Ran thought for a moment. In my opinion, we can't go to Boss's side, otherwise, not only will we not be able to help, but it is very likely that it will ruin things. However, we can't stay here for long. If that ghost-eyed golden eagle can't find Boss, it is very likely that it will turn back. Let's leave first, and then think of a way to meet up with Boss. Then, all right. Xiao Honkai was still a little worried about Lin Yi's situation, but in the current situation, rashly following over was indeed the most foolish choice, so she could only do as Xiao Ran said. At this moment, on Lin Yi's side, just as Xiao Ran had speculated, Lin Yi had indeed successfully gotten rid of the ghost-eyed golden eagle's pursuit. The ghost-eyed golden eagle above was similar in strength to the one he encountered during the newcomer trial. It was also in the middle stage of the Foundation establishment stage. Originally, with Lin Yi's current strength, after being locked on by it, it would be a very difficult thing to get rid of it, and from the beginning to the end, that ghost thing did not help. This time, The reason why it was so smooth was because of the cub that Xiao Honkai had just subdued. Indeed, in the eyes of the ghost-eyed golden eagle above, this cub was an out-and-out signal device. Carrying such a cub, Lin Yi was like carrying a big light bulb of a few hundred watts. No matter how fast his movements were, he could not escape its perception. However, there was an old saying that it was dark under the light. The ghost-eyed golden eagle could have directly locked on to Lin Yi, but since there was a natural big light bulb like the cub, the ghost-eyed golden eagle naturally locked onto the cub. It did not know that Lin Yi had a golden finger called the jade pendant space. When the ghost-eyed golden eagle was lured away from Xiao Ran and Xiao Honkai, Lin Yi turned around and stuffed the cub into the jade pendant space. Thus, without any suspense, the ghost-eyed golden eagle completely lost track of Lin Yi in an instant, as if its eyes had suddenly gone blind. This was the scene that Xiao Ran saw. The ghost-eyed golden eagle had been circling above, but it could not find Lin Yi's figure. To be continued. Chapter 3896. However, the ghost-eyed golden eagle was not an ordinary spirit beast after all. Even if Lin Yi successfully got rid of its lock with the help of the space in the jade pendant, he had to be extremely careful in his next move. Otherwise, if he was even slightly careless, the ghost-eyed golden eagle would immediately come back. Although the ghost-eyed golden eagle had temporarily lost track of his whereabouts, it would still search for him in the following period of time. Therefore, Lin Yi did not intend to meet up with Xiao Ran and Xiao Honkai. Moving alone was safer for both of them. For the other newcomers in this spirit beast assessment, being able to get a spirit pet for free was something that they could not wish for. Like Xiao Honkai, who was directly hot-blooded when she saw a ghost-eyed golden eagle cub, Lin Yi did not think too much of it. After all, there was a ghostly thing in the space in the jade pendant. If Lin Yi used such an inhumane thing like the spiritual pet talisman to collect a spirit pet under his nose, it would be a little unreasonable. Moreover, this kind of low-level spiritual pet talisman could only subdue spirit beasts below the heaven stage. It was difficult for this level of spirit beasts to enter Lin Yi's eyes. Even when he saw the ghost-eyed golden eagle cub just now, he did not have any interest in it. Of course, if it was a heaven-defying spirit beast cub with the bloodline of a king, then it was a different matter. At that time, maybe Lin Yi did not need to do it himself. The ghostly thing would be happy to see it and take the initiative to help him rope it in. However, this was only the periphery of the back mountain. The probability of a heaven-defying spirit beast appearing was negligible, close to zero. From Lin Yi's point of view, the biggest benefit of the spirit beast test this time round wasn't the spirit pet, but the ability to stay in the outer area of the back mountain for a whole month. To him, this was the best benefit. The three pavilions were very strict with the control of the back mountain. For newcomers like Lin Yi, other than the opportunity of the newcomer assessment, they could not go in and out at ordinary times. And this back mountain was the only place that he knew of where he could find the heart-devouring exquisite grass. With the heart-devouring exquisite grass, he would be able to refine the foundation building pill, and with the foundation building pill, he would be able to level up quickly. This was what Lin Yi valued the most at the moment. Although there were 2 heart-devouring exquisite grass in the space of the jade pendant, the more the better. If he could find a few more heart-devouring exquisite grass in the periphery of the back mountain, it would be a worthwhile trip. In addition, the back mountain was rich in resources. For any cultivator, it was a natural treasure trove. Even if it was just the periphery, as long as one was willing, one could find many priceless treasures of heaven and earth. Not only were there all kinds of spirit medicines and spirit beasts, but there were also many rare and precious treasures in the outside world. Last time, the newcomer trial only lasted for 3 days. Although Lin Yi had successfully obtained a heart-devouring exquisite grass, he did not have the time to stroll around. However, this time, he had an entire month's time. If he wanted to, he could run around the back mountain's periphery. Such an opportunity. Lin Yi naturally had to make good use of this opportunity. Otherwise, he would be letting down the unique mobile warehouse in his jade pendant space. However, what surprised Lin Yi was that before he could start to sweep, He actually met an old acquaintance in this vast back mountain's periphery. When he discovered that the top of his head was shrouded by a black shadow, Lin Yi thought that he was discovered by the ghost-eyed golden eagle. He did not expect that it was a flying spirit beast from the back mountain hall. A person and a beast descended from the sky. It was actually Shanghai Laner and her little curly-coiled bear. He watched helplessly as Shanghai Laner and the little curly-coiled bear descended from the sky and landed in front of him. Even with Lin Yi's tough nerves, he could not help but be shocked. "You? Why are you here? How rude. Why didn't you call me little senior sister when you saw me?" Shanghai Laner pointed at Lin Yi's forehead and said angrily. Lin Yi was stunned. At this time, she still cared about these details. Seeing Shanghai Laner's angry look, he could only satisfy her. "Okay, little senior sister. That's good." Shanghai Laner's anger immediately turned into joy. She tiptoed and pretended to be calm as she patted Lin Yi's shoulder. The little curly-coiled bear also followed suit and hung on Lin Yi's neck to do the same action, which made people unable to help but laugh. Lin Yi looked at the master and the pet, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. He shrugged and said, "Now can you tell me why I suddenly appeared here?" Under normal circumstances, without the permission of the back mountain hall, no one could enter and exit the back mountain at will. But with Shanghai Laner's powerful background, although it was possible to make an exception and obtain permission, how could the elders of the back mountain hall let her in alone? It must be known that with little curly-coiled bear's strength, it would be difficult for Shanghai Laner to deal with the perils of the back mountain. The elders of the back mountain hall let her in without permission. If something happened, how would they explain it to Shanghai Tianhua? And what made Lin Yi even more surprised was that it was easier said than done to find a person in the vast back mountain periphery. How did Shanghai Laner know that he was here? "Hee, senior sister. Of course I have something important to do here. Anyway, little junior brother, you have nothing to do, so accompany me to do a mission in the back mountain," Shanghai Laner said with a smile. "Mission? What mission?" Lin Yi was even more confused. According to his understanding, a young lady like Shanghai Laner would not care about mission rewards. She could have as many cultivation resources as she wanted, so why would she need to do any mission? What's more, she came alone to do a mission in the dangerous back mountain. With the strength of this young lady, who was barely at the peak of the early stage of the foundation establishment stage, and bringing along a burden like little curly-coiled bear, wasn't it a little risky? "Let me tell you, little junior brother, grandfather gave me a mission a few days ago. He asked me to design a weapon and collect materials for forging. I've already thought of the weapon's appearance, but I'm still missing a few materials. One of the most important materials can only be found in the back mountain, so I, your senior sister, came here," Shanghai Laner said in a serious manner. "So that's how it is." Lin Yi nodded in understanding. From his point of view, this should be Shanghai Tianhua taking the opportunity to let this young lady gain some experience. Otherwise, if she were to blindly protect the soaring sky pavilion, no matter how diligently she cultivated, it would be difficult for her to truly grow. Moreover, this little senior sister in front of him did not look like someone who would diligently cultivate. Originally, I was a little scared to come here alone, but I didn't want to ask Su Lingchong and those annoying guys for help. It just so happens that little junior brother is doing the newcomer assessment here, so I directly came to find you. What do you think? Senior sister is very smart, right?" Shanghai Laner said proudly. Chapter 3897. Shangguan Lan scratched her head and said matter-of-factly, "That's how I found you. I told Grandpa Baldy in the back mountain hall that I would come to find you, and then he sent someone to bring me here." Grandpa Baldy? Lin Yi was stunned for a moment, and then reacted. She should be talking about the bald elder sitting in the middle of the back mountain hall. However, this made him even more shocked. Could the elders of the back mountain hall be so powerful that they could so easily lock onto him in the vast back mountain? Even with the assistance of various restrictions in the back mountain, this ability was still shocking. Although there had been such speculations and rumors before, but now that a living example was placed in front of him, Lin Yi couldn't help but shudder. It seemed that he really had to be careful in the back mountain in the future. Otherwise, his secrets might be exposed at any time. Seeing Lin Yi's incredible expression, Shanghai Laner suddenly asked curiously, "Hey, little junior brother, don't you know? I've heard my grandfather mention that the elders of the back mountain hall can almost cover the entire back mountain with their perception after using the assistance of many restrictions, except for the core area of the back mountain. Although under normal circumstances, no one will do this, but if they are asked to find someone or investigate something in the back mountain, it will be very convenient." This was expected. After all, no matter how strong they were, there was a limit to manpower. No one would always pay attention to the entire back mountain. If they really did this, it was not a joke that they would vomit blood from exhaustion. As for Lin Yi, if it wasn't for Shanghai Laner specifically coming to find him, a big figure like the back mountain hall elders would not waste energy on a newcomer, let alone keep their attention on him all the time. So as long as he acted carefully, there should not be a big problem. The core area, shouldn't that be a place of key surveillance? Why can't I sense it? Lin Yi asked curiously. I accidentally spilled the beans. This is a secret I learned from eavesdropping on Grandpa and several other elders. When the higher-ups talked about this matter, they all called it the shame of the three great pavilions. Most people don't know about it. Shanghai Laner stuck out her tongue cutely. The shame of the three great pavilions? Lin Yi's interest was immediately piqued. He had been on Heaven Stage Island for 4 months, and because he had always been in the Welcome Pavilion, he did not know much about the three great pavilions, especially some secrets that were not known to others. The back mountain was clearly the territory of the three great pavilions. Yet, something that the higher-ups called a disgrace to the three great pavilions had actually happened in their territory. Lin Yi's curiosity was immediately aroused. "Forget it, I won't tell anyone else, but it's a different story if it's you, junior brother. I'll tell you in secret." Shanghai Laner pretended to be mysterious as she let Lin Yi move closer to her ear, then said, "In the past, the back mountain hall could monitor the entire back mountain, but something happened later on. When a back mountain hall elder was monitoring the core area, his divine sense was destroyed by the joint efforts of several of the strongest spirit beasts. He has yet to recover from his coma. At that time, the three great pavilions gathered a total of 10 elders to suppress him, but in the end, nothing came of it. After that, this matter was rarely mentioned." After hearing this secret, Lin Yi couldn't help but narrow his eyes. Before, he thought that the back mountain was under the complete control of the three great pavilions, but looking at it now, that didn't seem to be the case. Although the three great pavilions controlled the back mountain in name, there shouldn't be much they could do to the spirit beasts, especially the strongest ones. Otherwise, there wouldn't be such a disgrace to the three great pavilions happening. Lin Yi couldn't help but feel shocked. To be able to fight against 10 elders from the three great pavilions at the same time. Just how strong were the spirit beasts in the core area? No wonder that damn thing said that he would be able to fight them with his current strength during the newbie test. One look from the other party could easily kill him, and that was not a lie. At that moment, Lin Yi suddenly remembered Yu Xiaoka and his unconscious inheritor girlfriends. He asked, "This back mountain hall elder hasn't recovered yet. Didn't he ask Master Zhang Liju for help? Or is it that even he can't do anything?" Shangguan Laner shook her head. "Master Zhang Liju is a big shot who stands at the top of the entire Middle Island, and he's also the master of the Middle Island's alchemy hall. Why would he come to the North Island for something like this? Although he came from the North Island and is more or less biased towards the North Island, he's still standing on the Middle Island's side. We can't be too biased and ask for his help for everything, right?" "I see." Lin Yi breathed a sigh of relief. The symptoms of this back mountain hall elder sounded similar to Yu Xiaoka and the others. If Zhang Liju couldn't do anything about it, then he was a little worried. After all, even if Zhao Hongba had said that Zhang Liju had successfully saved Master Bing and Master Shui, it was just a rumor and not an actual case. But I heard from my grandpa that the reason why the Elder Council didn't ask for Master Zhang Liju's help was because they felt that a favor was valuable, and they didn't want to waste it on something so small, Shangguan Laner continued. Lin Yi couldn't help but grin. The life of a back mountain hall elder was a small matter, but thinking about it, compared to Zhang Liju's favor, it did seem like a small matter. From the perspective of the three pavilions, although elder-level masters were hard to come by, they could still be trained and recruited. Zhang Liju's favor, on the other hand, was a precious strategic resource that couldn't be wasted easily. All right, I've already told you such a big secret. Next, you have to work hard for me. Shangguan Laner tiptoed and patted Lin Yi's shoulder again. Then, all right, Lin Yi thought about it and finally nodded. Although he wanted to use this rare opportunity to walk around the outskirts of the back mountain and search for the heart-eater grass, he could take care of these things when he was with Shanghai Laner. What's more, he was worried about Shangguan Lan or wandering around the back mountain alone with Xiao Quan Quan. Even if the back mountain hall elders were always keeping an eye on her, if something really happened to her, even with the strength of those elders, they would not be able to help. But, do you know where the materials you're looking for are? Lin Yi asked. Chapter 3898. Shangguan Laner giggled and said confidently, "Of course I know. Your senior sister has done a lot of homework in advance. The place we're going to next is called Half Moon Lake. We have to walk 200 miles to the north." Half Moon Lake? If that's the case, then let's set off quickly, Lin Yi immediately said. If it was outside, 200 miles was not a long distance for experts at the peak of the early stage of the foundation establishment stage like them. It wouldn't take them long to finish the journey. But in the outskirts of the back mountain, it was very difficult to say. Hurrying through the dense forest was very troublesome, and the key was that danger lurked everywhere. If they were not careful, they would encounter some ferocious creatures. If something happened along the way, they might not be able to succeed even after a few days and nights. It was not impossible to lose their lives along the way. After a whole day and night, Lin Yi appeared at the shore of Half Moon Lake with Shangguan Laner and Little Circle Bear. The reason why it took so long, besides the fact that Lin Yi had taken the opportunity to collect elixirs along the way, was mainly because of Little Circle Bear. This little guy had cheaply plucked the tail feathers of an oddity sparrow midway. Oddity sparrows were very common creatures in the outskirts of the back mountain. Their individual strength was not too strong, basically between the earth rank and the heaven rank. They had a pair of sturdy, ostrich-like legs, but beautiful feathers that were not inferior to peacocks. The oddity sparrow that Lin Yi and the others encountered on the way was probably because it often saw people. After sensing that Lin Yi and the others were not hostile, it actually swaggered around them in search of food. Thus, Little Circle Bear, under the bursting of curiosity, casually plucked a handful of feathers. Then, a tragedy happened. Although the oddity sparrow was a vegetarian bird, it treasured its feathers the most. The consequences of Little Circle Bear's cheaply plucking this time directly caused it to go berserk in an instant. Moreover, the oddity sparrow was a very strong social species. Provoking one of them was equivalent to provoking the whole flock. One odd walker sparrow was not scary, but what if there was a whole group of dozens or even hundreds of them? Even Lin Yi did not dare to say that he could withstand the attack of so many odd walker sparrows. Moreover, in a place like the outskirts of the back mountain, once there was a commotion, the trouble would become more and more serious. Fortunately, although the odd walker sparrow was extremely fast, it had a weakness. It couldn't fly like other birds. Moreover, they couldn't climb up the tree. Lin Yi and the others squatted on the tree for a long time before they finally waited for the odd walker sparrows to gradually disperse. Only then did they manage to escape unscathed. But this action reminded Lin Yi of Yushu, and he couldn't help but sigh. Oh, is this Half Moon Lake? It looks pretty good. The origin of Half Moon Lake should be because of its half-moon shape, right? Looking at the scene before him, Lin Yi's eyes lit up. Not only that, I heard from Grandpa that there are a lot of fluorescent creatures at the bottom of the lake. At night, it looks like a real half-moon from the sky. I heard that it's very beautiful. Shangguan Laner said with a yearning look. Really? Then it's worth looking forward to. Speaking of which, can you tell us what we are looking for now? Lin Yi asked. From the beginning, Shanghai Laner had been keeping him in suspense, and he still didn't know what Shanghai Laner's goal was. Do you see that super huge cedar tree in the middle of the lake? The thing I want is in the heart of the tree, little brother. Little junior brother. Shangguan Lan smiled. Then let's not delay, let's go there now. Lin Yi's heart moved when he saw it, and he took a deep breath. He changed the topic. The super huge cedar tree that Shanghai Laner pointed out was surrounded by the lake on all sides, but because this was Half Moon Lake, if he set out from the narrowest part, he only needed to skim over the lake's surface for a dozen meters. For an expert in the early stage of foundation establishment stage like him, it was not difficult. However, Shanghai Laner said slowly, "Don't worry, little brother. You still don't know. Although this half-moon lake looks beautiful and quiet, but Grandpa said that the more beautiful things in the world are often more dangerous. If you are a little careless, you will die here." And Linny was slightly stunned. He had always been very confident in his own perception. In the periphery of the back mountain, he could also perceive the omnipresent danger in advance. He had avoided a lot of trouble along the way, but on the edge of this half-moon lake, he had never felt any signs of danger. Until now, this half-moon lake gave Lin Yi only one impression, and that was that it was unexpectedly quiet. If it was in the secular world, this tranquility would be a very rare enjoyment, but in this dangerous back mountain, if one carefully experienced it, it would instead make one's heart abnormally uneasy. However, there were no powerful spirit beasts around, nor any other ordinary beasts. Within a few miles of the half-moon lake, it gave people the feeling that it was isolated from the back mountain, a pure land that stood aloof from worldly affairs. The degree of tranquility really made people feel a little strange. However, as Shangguan Lan had said, the more abnormal a place was, the more likely it was to have unexpected dangers. There might be some kind of extremely terrifying spirit beast hidden in the half-moon lake. Otherwise, it would be impossible to explain why there were no spirit beasts around. I have carefully done my homework. This half-moon lake, in the back mountain hall's danger level ranking, is one of the most dangerous places in the periphery of the back mountain. Countless experts have died here. Even gold core stage experts do not dare to take it lightly. In the past, there have been precedents of gold core stage experts dying here. Shanghai Laner said while biting her finger. Gold core stage expert? Lin Yi suddenly jumped in fright. He had a premonition that this place was not ordinary, but he never thought that even gold core stage experts would fall for it. Lin Yi had always been very confident in his own strength, so even when he encountered Nantiano, a peak late-stage foundation establishment expert, he did not give up on the idea of fighting, and in the end, he had the last laugh. However, if the opponent was a gold core stage expert, even Lin Yi would not have any thoughts of contending against him, because the disparity in strength between them was like the difference between heaven and earth. If even gold core stage experts were to fall here, then this half-moon lake was really not something that he, a peak early-stage foundation establishment expert, could handle. If that's the case, doesn't that mean that our chances of success are next to nothing? Lin Yi asked with a frown. If it was just him, then it would be fine. Even if he knew that there was a slim chance of survival, his unyielding character would still urge him to try. But now, he had Shanghai Laner and Xiao Quanxiong with him. Chapter 3899. With such a lineup, to deal with the half-moon lake that even a gold core stage expert might not be able to deal with, Lin Yi really did not have the confidence. If he let Shanghai Laner have an accident here, not only would it be difficult to explain to the Soaring Sky Pavilion's pavilion master Shanghai Tianhua, but even Lin Yi himself would not be able to feel at ease. Shanghai Laner nodded. Not only is it negligible, if we act during the day, there is no possibility of success at all, but at night, there is a little opportunity. At night? Why do you say that? Lin Yi asked curiously. Wait until night, little junior brother, you will naturally know. Shanghai Laner giggled, keeping him in suspense. It seems that you are indeed well prepared, little senior sister. Lin Yi did not continue to ask and sincerely sighed. Before this, Shanghai Laner in his eyes was purely a young lady, a naive third-generation cultivator. But now he suddenly discovered that if this young lady really wanted to be serious, she was actually quite a reliable person. That is a must. Otherwise, how can I be your little senior sister? Shanghai Laner had a proud face. The two of them brought Little Circle Bear and immediately began to recuperate on a tree on the edge of the Half Moon Lake. Because there were no other spirit beasts around to disturb them, the Half Moon Lake was a rare, secluded place in the periphery of the back mountain. And according to Shanghai Laner, although the Half Moon Lake was an extremely dangerous place, if one did not touch the lake's surface, it was relatively safe. In other words, the real danger of the Half Moon Lake was hidden in the lake. As they waited, the sky gradually turned dark, and the Half Moon Lake that did not seem to have many special features during the day finally revealed its true appearance in front of Lin Yi and Little Circle Bear. Just as Shanghai Laner said, after night, because of the fluorescent creatures, the lake began to shine. Hiss! Lin Yi could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. After the Half Moon Lake glowed, the scenery here became magnificent, like a fairyland on earth. However, under its beauty, its ferocious true appearance was unreservedly revealed in front of the two. No wonder you said we have to wait until night to find an opportunity. If we act rashly during the day, nothing will be left. Lin Yi was secretly alarmed. Due to the fluorescent light, the two of them could clearly see the scene under the lake from the treetops. This was a level of perception that could not be penetrated by daylight. And in the depths of the lake, shockingly, there was a huge and malevolent black shadow circling around it. Its appearance was unclear, but judging from the black shadow, not only was it huge, but it was also full of killing intent. The feeling it gave Lin Yi was that this fellow's strength was far above that of the ghost-eyed golden condor. It was an out-and-out powerful, ferocious beast that would choose a person to devour at any time. If he was ignorant and directly made a move during the day, he would have long since died. But now, because they could clearly see its position, although it was still very dangerous, there was still a chance to take advantage of it. I'm not very good at fighting, so how do we cross the lake to reach the giant fir tree in the middle? It depends on your ability, junior brother. Shanghai Laner shrugged her shoulders at Lin Yi. All right, Lin Yi was already prepared for this. Although with his current strength, it was extremely difficult to bring Shanghai Laner and Little Circle Bear across the lake, but in his opinion, it was a good thing that Shanghai Laner could calmly recognize the reality. Otherwise, if this young lady really wanted to act recklessly, she wouldn't even know how she died. The distance from the giant fir tree in the middle, the narrowest part of the lake, was only more than 10 meters, and if the target was directly locked on the horizontal branches, crossing from the canopy of the lake would be closer. Lin Yi carefully observed for a while, and then locked his eyes on a tree not far away. Compared to the surrounding trees that were tens of meters tall, it was not very tall. The top of the tree was only 10 meters from the ground, but this was the one closest to the fir tree in the lake. The distance between the trunk at the edge and the trunk of the fir tree was only 7 or 8 meters. For a master like Lin Yi, who was at the peak of the early stage of foundation establishment stage, this was a simple step. After choosing the position, the next thing to do was to wait patiently for the opportunity. If it was during the day, it was impossible to see the situation at the bottom of the lake, and the danger could not be predicted, so there was no chance to talk about opportunities. But now at night, he could use the fluorescence of the lake to lock the position. At the bottom of the lake was a terrifying existence that could kill a master of the gold course stage. Lin Yi did not have the slightest intention to fight with it, because if they really met face to face, the result was already determined, so he must stay as far away from it as possible. Only when it swam to the farthest end of the Half Moon Lake would it be the time to act. Then you and Little Circle Bear can stay here. Judging from the situation during the day, this place should be safe as long as you don't do anything unnecessary. Just stay here and wait for me to come back. Remember to hide yourself, there might be some commotion later. Lin Yi said as he stood up. Don't worry, with Little White protecting me, I won't be in danger. Little junior brother, you can rest assured and go on your way. Shanghai Laner smiled and waved her hand. Rest assured and go on my way? Lin Yi suddenly had black lines on his head.